call the meeting to order, and we'll begin with, I know we have a quorum of 9, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do want to apologize for the several-minute delay. Somewhere in the package here, we have the minutes. I believe we should have the minutes somewhere.
They're the second page.
Excuse me?
They're the second.
Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to look at these? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the attendance. I'm sorry. Still hurrying at nonstop speed. So, you want to go through the names and record them, or who's here?
Sure.
You call them?
Just,
Oh, hold on,
See
Joe.
if I can, sorry.
One second. Thank you, Deb. For finding my feet.
Joe Souza.
Present.
Jay Edwards.
Here.
Justin LaCroix.
Present.
Ruth Hollenbeck.
Present.
Jeff Karen.
Here.
Tom Haley.
Here.
Deb, how do you say your last name? Janik.
Present.
And I'm so. Jennifer Jocelyn. Sorry about that.
So we note that Jen Rashley and Brendan McNally are away. Thank you. So the minutes, we started talking about them, and thank you, Sherry, for helping to make these happen. And has everyone had a chance to look at them? Do we want to move them down in the agenda, or do we want to take like 5 minutes and look them over and get them over with?
Right off the bat, my name is spelled with a Z instead of an S.
Okay.
Really?
Thank you, Joe. Why don't we just take a few minutes, everyone go through them. It's pretty straightforward stuff.
It's correct on the second page.
On the second page, where it says Ruth was voted in as budget committee chairwoman, is it not vice?
Yep.
That probably would be the case. Whereabouts are you?
Page
Election
2.
of officers?
Page 2, almost the bottom of the paragraph.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, good catch. Any other typos or substantial corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve from Deb and a second from Joe. No discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Unanimous vote. Thank you. We got a first set of minutes approved. Fantastic. Clean them up after the meeting, get them signed and uploaded. Okay. Great. I put the next item on the agenda at the request of our secretary. And the nature of it is that one of our citizens in the town, Laura, has offered to come to the meetings and just help in the background, take notes, minutes, help take notes and background materials and just help out with information. So I put this on here. Do you have any words, Sherry? Or?
Yeah, I'd like to say that after watching several older budget committee meetings, and then after the joint meeting the other night, being that I haven't ever done this before, and I asked the other day, I said I kind of needed assistance. Laura did the CRC minutes. I think she helped out with the CRC minutes, and she knows how to take minutes. So I think having somebody to help me learn how to get it going, and also it was hard for me to be able to pay attention to what was being said, and write all the stuff. Being new and wanting to really pay attention to what is going on and be involved and be able to react and have good feedback. It would be helpful to have somebody actually taking the minutes or helping take the minutes.
Do you need a motion to do
Well,
that, or is that
no,
something you can just do?
I don't think, I mainly put it on the agenda because I just wanted to talk about it, and it's simply that Laura was going to sit there and help out with things, and after the meeting, here are my notes,
God
sort of
bless
hand
you.
off. Yeah, God bless you. So anyway, I just didn't want it, I just wanted to make it known more than anything. I don't think we need a motion, it's just what it is, it's just, background help.
I'll still be responsible
Yeah,
for making
it all
sure
goes
it's
through
all
you in the
right,
end. It's just-
and that we still approve it all.
Right.
We want to make sure everything's right, and somebody can help you, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So.
There's less chance of there being mistakes with
Yeah.
somebody who knows.
Now,
what
you're
they're doing.
ultimately, though, there's nothing, you're the one responsible, blah, blah, blah.
And I'll take
Right.
responsibility
Yeah, of
if
course. All right,
she
so
makes any
You
mistakes.
miss a vote, though, you got yourself covered.
No, I think that's
Yeah.
both of you.
Yeah, I think so.
So there's no issue with the charter definition of secretary as the note taker by using someone who's not
They're both
elected
doing
to
it
the charter,
simultaneously.
Well,
elected to the
Yeah, I'm
committee?
still going to take notes. And then what I think we're going to do was, I just had asked her if she'd also kind of be in the background and write notes, and then look at mine to make sure I don't miss anything, because I'm not familiar with what all I'm supposed to write, what I'm not supposed to write.
I just want to make
Just-
sure that we're within the charter.
Right, no, I agree.
I'm not delegating.
I'm very flattered, because for 3 years I did it alone, so now I know it takes 2 people to replace me, so.
That's right.
Well-
I'm quite flattered.
you
It
should have seen the
does.
phone calls trying to figure out who did seconds, and so, yeah, it's impressive what you did, so.
It is. Especially because I've never done it before. I am trying.
Anyway, I just, if Laura's sitting there writing, I didn't want there to be any question of that she's in the background just taking notes and handing them off to help out. in the background. I just didn't want any question of that or any curiosity, so. Other than that, so that was that, item number 4. Any other discussion on this? I don't think we need a vote, because there's nothing official, really. Okay.
I guess you could just ask, does anybody object?
Does anybody object?
As long as we understood that Sherry, as the Budget Committee's member and representative, is the only one that has the state website.
Correct.
That's
And it
correct.
stays official in that manner.
Well, I have it too.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Regardless, the
So
meetings
as
are
long as we
on
stay in with the
video.
parameters of the Budget Committee as a legislative elected body,
Yes, I've been doing the uploading. I'll be the one doing that.
probably can't hurt.
Okay, great. Cross off number 4, thank you. Town Sergeant. So what I did was, I'll make the introduction, I'll make the introduction now. This is Kelly Levesque, and she is our Town Sergeant, as most of you know, but we have new people on the committee, so I did want to, A, introduce, and B, I thought we could start with the Town Sergeant, and this would be our first foray into testimony this season, and it's an easy one, no offense.
It is.
But I just thought we could start with a softball. So with that being said, at the end of maybe Monday night, after our budget workshop, I asked Kelly if she was willing to just come forward and we could do a dry run. So now, Kelly, we don't, I don't know what you have in front of you, but I'm not sure that we have what you have.
I have the draft budget that was passed out Saturday at the town council
Okay,
budget
so we
workshop.
don't have that, but that's okay.
Okay. But when you do see the draft budget, I have one line item. It's, let me explain my position first.
Yeah,
So
what do
I'm
you
Kelly
do?
Levesque. I'm an elected town sergeant. This is my second term that I'm starting, and they are 2-year terms that you serve. I have 2 main responsibilities. My first responsibility is that I must attend all town council meetings. And I work under the town council president at any time. I'm basically the bouncer of the town council. No, I'm very imposing. At any time, if I'm instructed by the town council president, I must remove said person from the meeting. Obviously, I have backup. I schmooze most men in the room to make sure somebody has my back, because I just have my smile or my mom voice, so I'm not sure how good I'm going to be at getting them out. And I've never had to do it. I really thought Councilor Beau was going to be my first mission, but he calmed down and everybody played nice, and I have yet to have to do it. My second arm that I have is based around elections. At the request of the clerk's office, I have to post agendas or official postings in regards to either the financial town referendum or the elections that happen. Depending on what election it is, each posting has to go in each precinct. I don't have to go and find the places. I basically come here, there's a list prepared, and I must go and take the postings to the various spots. I also have to courier down to the Board of Elections. Sometimes that's every week, sometimes it's not every week. Anything that they need, I have to pick up things here, take them down, wait, bring them back, along with other things that come back from the Board of Elections. On Election Day itself, I can go in and help at any polls, and my biggest responsibility is coming at the end of Election Day, and I do have to officially go out with a team member and close a polling site, at least one, if not 2. So we have to stand there while they close the polls, make sure that all the ballot boxes are empty, and bring everything back here to Town Hall. So that's my basic responsibilities. My budget itself is comprised of one line item, which is a stipend. It is account 5114, and it's $1,500. I've looked back a couple years. I don't think it's changed. Hasn't changed in years. It's just there. Any questions?
So obviously, that helps to cover 50 cents a mile times
Yes,
all that mileage.
exactly.
Right.
And that's really what it is.
Right.
Is for mileage.
Right.
And if I'm going into Providence, I've only had to do it once now, but if I am going into Providence and they need something from another area, I do go and get it for them. So I went to some other building and picked up blank birth certificates once. You know, no sense for multiple people from this office to go down in the same day. But yeah, that's what it covers.
Kelly, I know the police officers take self-defense classes sometimes. Have you ever taken any of those types of classes?
No. No, I'd rather just schmooze the guys in the room. Come on.
You don't need a taser then.
I begged Blakey for a taser when I first
Okay.
started. I was like,
There's a
come
blanket
on.
request.
I have one, I'll donate it to her.
Come on, my mom voice will get me there.
Mom voice works.
Yeah, mom voice. You know, that stare.
Yeah.
Well, that's an awful lot of hours, as Sally will attest to be in this building, so.
Yeah.
I remember, this is just an anecdote, but Sally may remember, but remember Sally back in the early 2000s, there was a really big, like, Irish-looking guy who was a sergeant. Who was that? Remember that fellow with the white hair? You remember? No? Anyway.
Yeah, was that Mr. Roy?
Yeah, Royce.
Is that who that was?
Larry, I mean, not Larry, different name. Same last name, yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of a funny fellow when he walked around. He was like an enforcer, you know, he was kind of funny about it. Anyway, enough of that. Any other questions for Kelly? Well, I think that does it.
Yes, they'll
Thank
get
you.
harder from here, but
Yeah,
good luck to you all.
we got through the first one. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Welcome.
Thanks, Cal.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, you'll note the next several actually have the word possible in front of them, because obviously we posted this a few days ago, and at that point, at noontime on Tuesday, it was unclear if we were going to have the backup we needed or not. So I put the word possible, not that we couldn't have just skipped over it anyway. So it looks like we have what we need and to talk about this, except for we don't have the treasurer. But she did provide the information. So the idea of some of these items that I chose were just, again, to get our feet wet, to look at some items. And, but also, these were relatively straightforward items, and not to say we're not going to revisit debt service perhaps when the treasurer's here, but debt service, streetlights, hydrant, these are relatively straightforward items, and I just thought we could deal with some straightforward items and maybe get at least a pencil check mark on them. So anyway, debt service, the treasurer sent us, if you look in the package, and anyone else is willing to, you know, to kind of lead this discussion if they like, but she sent us an email, which you all got, and I included that because it speaks a little about, has a little narrative. And then she sent us a kind of a one spreadsheet that has like a reverse ladder, a stair shape to it. And that one is the traditional bonds. And then she sent us another one, which was more like the capital things, the Mack trucks and backhoes and fire trucks and whatnot. The time payments, I guess, 4 of 5 and 8 of 9 and 8 of 10, that kind of thing. So we have like 3 sheets of paper to work off of for that. And so I'm not sure if, I don't know, I'm going to put someone on the spot. Jay, would you like to, are you privy to this? I can try to lead this discussion. I know the town administrator would prefer to wait for the treasurer. I don't know how much discussion there is. I'll attempt it. Are you up on these things at all, or put you on the spot?
You're putting me on the spot.
Well, I wasn't here last year, so I don't, some of these bonds phase out, phase in, I don't know, so.
Obviously, I'm not an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the discussion, if I remember right, last year and the year before when you were here, was around things like, could we pay things ahead of time, and would that save us money? And if I remember, the answer was almost always no. We can rearrange the debt, we can get it restructured, but it's always going to be there, and we can't like if one of us won the lottery and decided to donate $10 million to the town, they can't pay it off and save money.
Okay. That's an important point then.
Yeah, so like when people say, well, we could use the casino money to pay down the debt that we already have, that's not going to work. If
For
we
the
could use
bonds, for the
the
bonds.
For bonds.
Not for all of
No,
the.
no, let me
the
finish.
vehicles.
To pay off existing obligated bonds,
Bonds.
we couldn't do that. To assume new debt, we could. In other words, you wanted to buy a pumper truck for cash, things like that. So the debt that you see on this sheet is pretty much engraved in stone. It's what it is, unless Denise can get it restructured, and actually, she has been quite successful in the past in doing that.
Question.
Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
So looking at the lease payments,
Now, Joe's just shifted to the other sheet, which is the capital
the
stuff, right?
trucks and
Yep.
everything else. All right. If I'm understanding this correctly, we owe a total of $202,979,000, so
Mm-hmm.
that if we were to pay that off, we'd save $118,000 in interest.
I think that's true.
Right,
So-
those can be paid early.
Those
But
can be.
Those we could do earlier.
Right.
We run into a problem with doing things like that because we'll exceed the cap by many times. So, we're kind of locked into some of this. I mean, there's only so much we can go before we're up to the cap. I don't think that people even want to get close to going to the cap, so.
So could we take some of the ones that are the lowest interest lease rates? I'm assuming the lease rate is the interest rate on the lease, and pay off the higher ones that, they're still not that high, but 3.597 maybe, or pay off some of the higher ones, and
Well, they write that 4 are gonna be paid off this year.
are they? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what.
maturity date, 4/15/19.
Yeah, it does.
19, 7/15/19,
Yeah.
so 4 of those are gonna erase this year as well.
Yeah, which helps.
Yeah, there's a lot happening just naturally, huh?
Right, and then you have 3 more next year.
So,
The other point I was gonna bring up, when you notice street light conversion, I don't know if everybody knows what that was.
you know, Joe, I vaguely remember, and it was really confusing, but
I think the
maybe
company
you
was
could enlighten
Prism.
everyone, because,
I
again,
believe the
refresh my
country's
memory.
name was Prism.
Prism.
And we basically took over the maintenance on the street lights.
From Grid.
Took it away from National Grid and their
Right.
expensive maintenance costs. Plus, we're changing them over to LED, which is saving us money. So that's kind of a wash, because we're saving money in electricity and what we're paying Grid for that, and it kind of pays for the Prism product. That's what Mr. Wojcik had presented to us back
Yeah,
years.
about 3 years ago, the guy
So
came
I'm
in.
assuming that that's still,
Well, it was, but, and I don't know the details, and I bet you Jan does, but I believe I read or heard or saw somewhere that it turned out to not be quite as rosy as it was predicted. I don't know where that is, but I bet you Jan does.
no, it was supposed to be revenue neutral. We weren't supposed to turn.
Oh, I thought there were serious savings, actually.
Well,
but-
no, but you gotta pay for all the LED bulbs, plus you're still paying for stick maintenance.
Right, but I thought I thought within about 3 years, you were in the black and
Once the
saving money.
LED bulbs
Yeah.
are covered.
Right, about
Then
3
you're only
years.
paying for
Well,
the
the
maintenance
fixtures.
fees.
Yeah. I'm going to recognize Jan, our town administrator.
Thank you. We can talk a little bit about street lighting. There are
It's the next item on the
several-
agenda, I think.
Is that where you're at, or?
No, I don't think we are.
Okay.
It just happens to be on this sheet, so I think that's how we got into it. So
Okay. Just my first and general remark about, talking about this immediately after debt service or whatever, I would strongly recommend that you wait until you can consider it in the context of a larger capital budget, which is what we are submitting. And part of that capital budget, or the discussion, will be to what extent you want to continue with sort of the payment schedule approach to some of these expenses, or the financing of trucks and what have you, or want to pay them off. But that's somewhat difficult to do if you haven't yet looked at what might be a surprising amount of capital items that I plan to put on the radar.
Okay, great, yeah. And just for everybody in TV land, it is January 10th, and the Budget Committee is due the first cut preliminary budgets no later than the 15th of January. So at this point, we have not received those preliminary budgets, understandably. And so that you just, if there's any question of these types of ambiguities, I just wanted to explain that it's very, very early in the process. And we're just sort of discussing some loose ends here to start to get our feet in the water. Thank you.
Okay. So otherwise, with respect to debt service, I agree with what has been said, that certainly the treasurer believes that we need to keep that in place. We don't have a whole lot of discretion in that regard. That changes when you start talking about some of the other categories. And DPW director is here as well, so when you get to street lighting and some
Okay.
of the other things, we can handle that together.
Great. So the, looking at the, so anyway, the one thing I know, the one comment is that I think Joe raised a point, and I raised another point, that I looked at this, I didn't look at this as much as I should have, but yeah, you pay off well, where's the total? 2.657 on the...
Just under 3 million.
Yeah, just under 2.6 million. And it seems like, I guess, what would be the interest remaining, principal and interest? Oh, no, but if you pay off 2.6 million, it looks like you avoid 381,000 each year, right? That's what it looks like. So, but I think the bigger point that is the one that Jen raised, and that is that so many of these go away within 2 years anyway. So
The
that's
biggest one's the light conversion. I mean, the interest on it alone is $65,000.
right.
And that one's we're gonna pay on that until 2027. So that would be one to really.
So that's
look
one
out.
to, right, and we'll get into that one maybe. Great. Okay. But that's a really good, I didn't even look at that column. I've been going, doing too many things, but I'm really glad you pointed that out, that so many of these end. I didn't even look at that, the maturity date column.
And I think the bigger thing will be like what Jan said, to look at, okay, so all of this is disappearing, but do we purchase new things with debt, or do we look at purchase things that we
Right.
don't?
Start fresh and.
Start fresh,
try
so
to,
we
yeah.
don't look at this every year.
Okay.
Right, and can I just say something about the gray box?
Okay, Ruth, switching back over to the traditional bonds now, sheet. Go ahead, Ruth.
If you look at the years that they were taken out, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, every year, a large bond. And that's very concerning to me. I'm hoping that we, like you said, we don't continue that trend.
And we need to maintain what we have so that we don't have to bond out to fix it.
We
or
need to maintain
buy
it better.
build it.
Exactly.
Does, I wanted to ask that question. So I looked at this, this gray box. So this is the debt. These are the different bonds that happened from 1999. There was one in 99, 04, 05, 06, 07, and one in 10. And where does that couple in? I'm just trying to understand how that carries into the year 11. I wrestled with that momentarily, and I never resolved that in my head a couple days ago when I first saw this.
I think last year she gave it to us from the beginning of the bond. I think we might have it from last year, a document that shows, the chart shows from the beginning of the bond. If that's what you're saying.
Well, I guess Ranger School, 3, 4, I guess I can maybe answer my question, I see. So Ranger School in 2010, and that's that column there. So it's just, okay, so it's just more rows above the line that says principal interest. Okay, I think I've answered my own question. Okay. Well, this is a pretty helpful sheet, actually, though. I found it to be quite helpful to get all this on one sheet of paper. It's a nice piece of work. Fortunately, it's pretty locked in stone. In any event, certainly enlightening to me, and I'm sure it is to other new committee members. Any questions about this sheet from anybody, or any more
Just a-
discussion?
just
I'm happy to stay on
Just
it.
a quick thing, to me, it'd be more helpful to have the totals that are in the gray box under each column where, or somewhere in the column that has to do with that bond. I think it should be right at the bottom or top of the pertinent column. That's just me, though, I'm not sure how anybody else.
When you say what's left on the bond?
No, I
what's
want the
left on-
total of the bond should be more in there at the top or the bottom of the same column.
The total when it was first taken out?
Yeah,
In 2009?
yeah, she gave us that last year, I believe.
So this is the last year for Picasset, am I correct in that? That this is gonna be paid off this year?
Right, to get the
And
total
then we'll just
picture.
be left with the Ranger and high school refinanced,
Right,
and the rest of it
can't get
going
the total
right.
picture this way.
I think so, yeah, it looks that way.
So we're heading in the right direction?
Yeah, and actually, that was the column I focused on. If you look at the right-hand column, for those of you and I apologize for having not got these out a day ago, but if you look at the right-hand column, okay, the total debt service increases, increases, increases. You get down to the gray line. See, it goes 4.2, 4.7, 4.7, 4.7, 4.7, and all of a sudden, in another couple of years, it drops to 4.0. That's a $700,000 decrease, and that's part of what Jen just pointed out.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Why do we have things that are already paid off on this? So high school, the first one was paid off in 16, and then Ranger School was paid off in 17. Why are we still showing that debt, not just showing what we currently have on the books and moving to the right?
I'm going to guess maybe one of two reasons. First of all, this sheet, this gray line might move down, so this line might have been, the treasurer might have created this, say, in 2013, so those were all active, and so she's just kept it and, you know, for history. Secondly, so that could be a reason. We can ask her when she testifies. Secondly, the other reason it might be there is because, because she did a restructuring about 2 years ago, and there may be some, I wouldn't understand it, but there may be some meaning, because it might be that one ended because she parlayed it into another
The
one.
Ranger to the right.
Yeah, you see, so that's it, there it is, THS,
The
refinanced.
high school one is not, so, because the one that's all the way to the right with the roofs, that's a brand-new one. That didn't come over from the original one that's all the way to the left that paid off in 16. That wasn't a refi, that was a brand-new one.
The second to the right column?
No, the right, so the first one on the left where it says the high school paid off, well, the way I'm reading is it was paid off in 2016. That
That's
bond
right.
is done and gone, according to this.
Yeah.
But it was not part of the one all the way to the right, because that's a totally new bond for the roofs.
I'm not certain of that, but okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, we voted on that separately for the roof project. It shouldn't have rolled in a previous bond.
No, but I'm not at all certain that the Tiverton High School, I just don't know the details. The Tiverton High School bond may not have ended in
No, it went
2016, and I think it might have got refinanced into the
Right.
one right in the middle of the
Right
page.
now- oh, okay.
You see what I mean? And that may be why it's still hanging around.
Into that, okay.
So it might have been that Ranger and Tiverton High School, those two on the left, see how they kind of ended about the same time? That one kicked off. So I think, and she might, the treasurer might be having those two columns hang around because they're,
Well,
you know,
and it
they're,
says 2016.
Yeah, it
underneath.
looks like
Yeah.
that.
yeah. I think those two are, you know, are the basis of that one. And she got a better rate or whatever it was,
Yeah, I
so.
remember her talking about refi, yeah, she refinanced it.
That would make sense why it's still
They took
there.
it
She
last
refinanced
Right.
years ago.
So, I hope that answers your question. I don't know if it's the right answer, but those are my two reasons.
Okay.
But I suggest that we wait for her.
Absolutely.
And talk to us, and you're speculating.
Absolutely. Yep. Oh, by the way, the earlier version of this agenda, just so you know, the first thing on it was town treasurer's budget, and I had asked the treasurer to come tonight, and she couldn't make it. I have an email out to her, and I'm waiting to hear back. I have to check my email. She might be able to make it next week, which would be the 17th. So part of this was, part of these items were that, and the reason she provided all this backup was because she couldn't make it tonight. So I just thought, if nothing else, when she does come before us, at least we've looked at it once, and, can't hurt. I wanted to, our town sergeant, go ahead, you have the floor.
I'm going to switch hats because I'm also a member of the Tiverton School Department Building Committee. So I can speak to the last column, which is the new project, TMS and THS renovation project, with the Picasset refinance. So I don't think Picasset actually came off, Jen. I think she just refinanced it and moved it. I can tell you for certain that the renovation at the high school and the middle school is a $15.3 million bond. The thing I want to remind all of you of when you're talking about the school bonds, no matter when they were, is that they come with a reimbursement from the state. For the project that we're currently working on right now that's wrapping up in the next 2 months at the middle school and high school, we're getting upwards of a 39% rebate back from the state that will go directly into the general fund based on the charter language. So there's a separate document that maybe you could also look at that not only shows the expenses that we're spending, but also what's actually coming back in. It doesn't come back to the school department, it actually goes back to the general fund and to all the taxpayers.
And it doesn't go to payments on this, correct? It goes into the general fund and then it can be used, so it doesn't get automatically put back into the debt that we incurred.
Nope.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah, it has to go to the general fund.
Correct. And I want to, that was exactly, when you were done, I was going to make that point. So if we look at the email that the treasurer sent, it talks about this second line, expecting OLIS reimbursement. Isn't that what it's called? No, school housing aid, that's what it is, school housing aid. That OLIS is the library, right? School housing aid and is the one that Kelly is speaking of. And it's, so here's the monkey wrench. So what happens when for the new people on the committee, when these bonds are taken out, the state says if you do this, we will reimburse you 30, is it 30, exactly 30% or a third? I think it's roughly 30% of the interest. Roughly 30%, right? It's roughly a third?
It's based on, there's different levels. Because most of ours was health and safety, it's up to 39%.
Okay.
But that's why I'm saying most of it will be, they may line item it where we did one thing and they may not give us the 39%. They may give us 35%, but most of it should come back at a 39%
Okay.
rebate.
Yes.
Yes,
Sally.
so it's a really intricate process. You have to have a standing building committee to go to the state and submit all these things that you want to get reimbursed. They go through it, as Kelly said. The bottom floor is 30. It's a wealth-based formula. That's what we got. I talked the other night about that for the 3 elementary schools, remember?
Mm-hmm.
But then if you could put in health and safety and it gets improved, it can go up and up to, 35 and 39, so we've been doing that. But remember when we did the sewer, down at the schools? We couldn't get reimbursement because we didn't have a standing building committee. It was like right in the middle of that whole process, and they didn't have time to put it together. So from now on, we do have that. We will keep it standing, because whatever we do now, we'll submit that to the state. And then, as Kelly said, it comes back to the town. It's the only way for us to give money to the town, because as you know, once it's appropriated to the schools, as we went through those 2 years, it has to stay there. But through this building committee, we can send it back to the town, and you can use it for, it doesn't have to come back to the schools, use it for whatever you need it for. So that's one good thing about it.
And it's the state,
Thank
right,
you.
Sally, who
State.
determine
The state determines.
whether it's health and
Yes,
safety,
they have, you
because
have
they,
to submit it, and they're very strict, and they even say, send aerials of the parking lot and different things. It's amazing what you have to go through.
Sally, is that a lump payment or is it over time?
You'll have to ask the treasurer.
Treasurer, okay.
So the tricky, I called it the monkey wrench, because when you, as Jay was pointing out, you do the traditional math on this, like you would maybe for your mortgage at home or something. Oh, should we refinance or not? But then all of a sudden, you also look at it and say, well, wait a minute. On the interest, we get 30 to 39% reimbursement. But if we pay it off, it goes away. So imagine being at home and all your interest on your mortgage, you got a 30-some-odd% reimbursement. So it's not a straightforward thing at all to pay these down in advance, because you lose the reimbursement. So that's just another.
But I think the vehicle vehicles we really need to look at, because I think there's a huge savings there if we didn't have to, I mean, some of the interest is like.
Right.
It's
The credit card interest, yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, because that's money that we
Yeah.
that just goes out, that could be so redirected somewhere, especially with casino revenue coming in and things like that to look at.
What are you talking about just now?
The vehicle interest.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
a whole
mean,
different
Some
thing,
of
yeah.
them, it's just, I mean, that's money out.
Yeah.
By the time you pay it off too, the vehicle's almost out of service.
Right.
So depending on, how long the loan was.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question about the library bond?
Well, I just want to make that point. Did everyone follow that point, some of the new people on the reimbursement, why it can be detrimental to pay them off early, how the equation is not just straightforward? Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So I'm going through Denise's email concerning the library specifically. We're going to get an OLS reimbursement of $309,052, and then we still have the proceeds from Essex,
Yep.
$165,42. So
That's a one-time.
That's just, yeah, but just talking about this year's payments. So this year's payment with interest and principal is $507,150, and on that, we're gonna get $469,564 back. So really, out of our budget is gonna be $37,586. That's really what we're,
Okay, I didn't do the math.
I did.
You added those two numbers, and
Yep. So
where did the four something come from?
So the payment is $507,150.
Mhm.
That's what we're gonna pay. The reimbursement is $469,564. And then what we're picking up is $37,586.
Okay. Super. Too bad you couldn't keep selling the old building.
Well, you never know. We got
He
anything
doesn't
else?
pay his taxes.
We got anything else we can put up for sale?
Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, because when I look at in the past, when I followed this, I look at the library budget and it always seems, especially the interest on the bond payments always seems so big. But when you look at that number and you convert what we get back, and even just this year is a little bit higher, but when you convert it back, it doesn't look like it's that huge.
Right. So long-term, that 309 type of number is, whatever that is, it'll vary, obviously, but that 309 number is probably what we could expect long-term for a reimbursement on the interest on the library bond.
Right.
To offset it.
Jeff, could you ask her to put the total of each bond somewhere in the chart? If you could.
Well, why don't we save that for when she testifies, which might be next week? Okay?
Yes.
Okay. That way you can give her the heat, and I don't have to. Just kidding. Okay. Anyone else got any comments or thoughts on these three documents? For now, until we redress them?
Not till we can maybe ask some more questions about like the prism thing and,
Well,
yeah.
I think we'll
The
get to
light.
that
Okay.
in a minute, yeah. Okay, great, so.
I just have one quick question about the lights too. Sally, the town financed the lights, am I right in that? And that's why it's on here with interest?
Apparently.
And did the schools buy them outright so that they don't have that? They do. So if they've purchased everything, you're not incurring any interest similar to what the town's doing, correct? Okay.
We are also receiving a rebate back from National Grid for purchasing them. But that, I think we took a rebate on our electric bill itself, so that stays within the school department. It
And
doesn't come back to the town.
The town does not get that same type of rebate because we financed it, or it does?
do.
We do, okay.
Okay, I would like to move on then. I'm going to check off number 6 on the agenda, and I'd like to move on to number 7, possible discussion of street lighting. And I believe that we have in our packet, our treasurer had the numbers handy, so quickly put together, I believe, wrong pile for me. Quickly put together a sheet for us on this. Just want to find it here. Now, here it is. It's got a plot at the bottom in color.
Did this come from her, or did you do that?
Nope, these came from the treasurer. She, must have had the numbers right at her fingertips and just banged them out for us, which is real nice. give us something to talk about. Looking at it, looks like we were running at around 150,000, and then it crept up. And I vaguely remember that. I don't know if that was I went to Direct Energy. I remember the creep up when that went up, and then that's when the Prism thing came in. So is our, Jan, did I hear you say that our DPW chief is here?
Yes, but I don't think he can, unless he proves me wrong.
I don't-
He can answer many questions about
'Cause
this particular.
okay, I didn't know. Okay.
And also, I'm somewhat familiar with similar scenario in Warren, where we also did LED conversion, but I don't have the particulars in terms of the financing.
Mhm.
I know more general, and I think you need to follow up with Denise in the room.
Okay.
Actually, if you have further questions.
Okay, because she's got the history on, she was around, right?
What we do know is that, and some of these figures show that in fact the costs per year have finally begun to come down
Mhm.
significantly. For a while, it was concerning that we didn't see as many savings as we had hoped for, and part of that was sort of a delay in the implementation of the project. So when it was mentioned that, things were supposed to be revenue neutral, which really meant revenue neutral in any fiscal year, so that what you have to pay out is actually covered by the savings that you realize. That didn't quite pan out that way because of the shift in the implementation. But these numbers at least show that the general premise that the town realizes savings, and those savings are ultimately offsetting the cost. We're heading in the right direction.
Well, this is, in 2019, the comment was for 5 months, right, for 2019, under the notes, the last note. So it looks like we're headed toward about $120,000 is kind of where we're headed. And if you just look at the totals on this line, 150, then it crept all the way up to 200, and I imagine that was when electricity was sky high a few years ago, if you all recall. And we also started biting off the Prism bit, and now we're down at 120. So I'm not quite sure all the ins and outs of this either, and it's going to take somebody who was around for when this happened to explain it.
Part of it is that we started paying for some of the expenses that the town is incurring earlier than we started realizing savings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you see in this schedule. It's beginning to catch up.
Okay.
Well, they went out and changed, every light bulb and fixture in town, from those mercury vapor bulbs over to LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you see the savings on the left with National Grid. Was this wasn't our total energy, wasn't this just what they were charging us to service the sticks? 163,000? I mean, it was an astronomical number.
You know what? Now it rings a bell too. This may have had something to do with just the service. Yeah.
Yeah, we were paying like a stupid number for each light post for them to do service on them.
Yeah.
And those bulbs need to get replaced
And we
every
changed
X.
over to this company to do that. But a lot of the expense is paying for the LED fixtures and lights. And that's why you're seeing the numbers coming down, plus we're not paying National Grid to maintain any sticks in town.
And then I guess the savings also comes because the LEDs last so long, so there's just less.
Right.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Joe is right that part of the savings that you see, but relatively late, is when Prism took over the maintenance.
Yeah.
work.
But that was
This is a
2000.
lot cheaper than.
It's all coming back to me slowly,
Yeah,
yeah.
but that was 2016 for the Prism.
It's like a fog.
And then it took 2 years to get any savings from
Well, in part
National.
because the light bulbs were not necessarily installed yet, I think.
When were they installed? Can you give me the
I don't have
time frame?
It was
Okay.
before my
It's the
time.
last few years.
And again, I'll ask you for the total for the entire project up to this point. That'd be nice to know. Thank you.
Well, I think our expert with the new DPW chief and with Jan being new, we're going to be looking at Denise as probably our in-house expert on this now, so.
A member of the council was there, like Denise, she was there for the whole process. She was
It's
there
true.
for-
There's one other thing I would like to add, if I may. Prism is quite good at scrutinizing how National Grid does its billing.
Yeah.
And it does that actually in a lot of the communities in the state, and it's very helpful to us. So, and that's an ongoing exercise, where they ask for, more raw data to look at, and then look for ways where they think National Grid may need to tighten things up, and they have done that, and that is also beginning to show.
I think, was it the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns promoted this around the state, and a lot of communities tied on to it. So.
Okay. Any other comments on this? I guess hopefully we'll hear more when the treasurer comes. Hopefully she's got some in-house knowledge here. Okay, so I will close that item, and we can move on to the next item, which is item 8, possible discussion of hydrant services. Now, to that, I go back to Denise's email, the treasurer's email, and I go to the bottom of the paragraph. I think this is relatively straightforward, and I'm not sure if our DPW chief has any comments, but she has the sentence there, as far as hydrants go, hyphen, I had been told many years ago, hyphen, that the $750 we send to each water district is a quote-unquote token annual appropriation. So, I think that's it, yeah.
North Tiverton and they took Stonebridge, $750 apiece, and that's all they get for the year.
Not a piece, like total. Like that's the line item in the budget. Now I added this on here, I had forgotten that. Actually, now it comes back to me.
1,500 total.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought, 750.
Right. So I don't think we're going to scrutinize that a whole lot. But, and I put it on there just looking for simple ones. Now, it's good though. Now we've run this one to ground. So go ahead.
It was discussed years ago, because I remember people that wanted to cut it, but I guess the town doesn't pay. They go on, the hydrants that are on town property that are serviced, it was my understanding that's what that money goes, why we make that donation to the water authorities, because of the hydrants that are on town properties to pay for the maintenance. That's what I remember from back when Jimmy Gonzalo was chair, so many years ago.
I can remember Chris Cotta, now that it's coming back to me, Chris Cotta commenting that it was a good deal.
Yeah.
I remember him saying that at one point, so it's coming back to me.
Shouldn't rock the boat.
No, we're not going to rock the boat. Again, I put it on there looking for simple items, and now we know, now we've addressed it, so, yeah.
Right, so it's not really a token, there's a real reason behind it, so.
Right. I don't know if you get that rate in New York City, that's all. Okay, so I'll move on to number 9, possible discussion of rubbish recycling collection. And this one, I put on there thinking that there's a contract, and so this should be a pretty well-defined number. And so I said, well, this should be pretty straightforward to discuss. So the administrator was gracious enough to provide the contract, which is in the package. It looks like this, contract agreement with MCT. And is it MCT or MGT? What is it? MTG, sorry. Yep. And at the back of it, there was some handwriting, I thought, in the back here. Oh, no, it's all spreadsheet. I thought there was a little handwriting. I don't have the benefit of the document that was handed out on Saturday, but maybe the administrator would be able to help. So is the number in your sheet, Mr. Jan, is the number for the trash, the 738,400?
Correct.
Okay. Straightforward enough. I'm just taking a look at the whole thing here.
Is that for 2020 or 2019?
That's 2020.
Okay.
It's 738,385 will be in my preliminary requests, and that constitutes an increase of around 1.86%.
And I would say DPW did a typo. It should have been 400, not 383. Said 738,738, comma, 400. I typed it in incorrectly, 738, 383 or whatever.
Okay. Okay, we're not gonna, that's a case of beer, I think, right? So,
I'm not overly worried about $17 on 700 some thousand.
okay, thank you. Okay, your name is?
Rick Rogers, DPW Director.
Okay, so I saw your name on some emails, I think, right? Okay, hi, I'm Jeff Karen. Nice to meet you, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, and you'll notice, just for people who, I was on the Budget Committee back in 18, and you'll notice it was 525. We had 525, that type of a number for years. And then there was talk about going to the automated system with the thing that picks up the bins, and there was talk about that, and I don't remember really everything that drove it, but we hadn't seen an increase. Apparently, we hadn't seen a contract increase in quite some time. And I don't quite remember all the ins and outs of it in details, but MTG was the low bidder, and they stuck with the type of bins we use now for the recycling and garbage for the foreseeable future, especially in light of what Joe pointed out about, possible transfer station coming in the next, shortly. It might not have made sense to invest in all those types of infrastructure, for those bins for everybody, because it was quite expensive. So that was the thought, I think, of the council back in 2018 when they made this decision from FY 2018 to 2019. Now, let's see, it drops off. I'm going to look to Jan, who might know more about this, or it's Rick, right?
Yes.
Rick. So why does this, let's see, what happens here when it drops off to 350? What's going on here? Next year? The year after?
The year after.
Where's that number cut in half? Oh, are they assuming that the landfill's closed? Is that why, or? Footnote 2.
Yeah, the landfill's supposed to close
20.
the end of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, so it
So any
drops.
number after that is wishful thinking, because we're going to be required to send all of our trash to the central landfill.
Sure.
We have no choice.
I get it.
Well, we actually did have estimates.
Well-
It was like a $500,000
Yeah,
increase.
well, $500,000?
Didn't
Wishful
Johnston
thinking.
just go up?
Yeah, well,
For
that
some
was
reason,
put
I'm
up
remembering
by,
this on
company
the
that's
Channel 10.
currently doing the work
They
for
did,
us.
right? There was a big
Now, that was the
increase.
fuel cost stayed as they are,
Keep in mind, well,
So we don't even know what that will be.
That's what,
there's a thing with trash called a tipping fee.
yeah.
It's per ton. Per ton includes if it's raining out and the trash gets wet.
Yeah.
When they weigh it, you're paying for water. If it's a nice, dry, sunny day, the same trash weighs significantly less. Tipping fees,
It goes 74
typically it'd be
a ton.
about $70 a ton, at least. And we have no option, we can't shop around. We have to go to central landfill. So we're gonna pay tipping fees, which we do not currently pay. Plus now, in addition to our recyclables, all of our trash will go. So now we have a lot more mileage, a lot more gas, and on and on and on and on. You could probably see this number that we're paying now triple. That would probably be conservative. So there's going to be a lot of angst in town in 2021 about trash.
So that was one of the reasons why the council wanted to go to the larger bins and eliminate some of the manpower. You just have a driver driving the truck, you don't have two guys behind.
Yeah.
Because currently, what is there, 3 on a truck? 2 in the back and 1 driving
Well,
it?
you're paying for less people.
Right, but I'm saying is 1 truck
Yeah,
going
there's
through a
a larger
neighborhood has
truck,
3
so-
people on
Yeah.
it. on
Larger
a-
truck.
Yeah, we're currently taking, they'll get 3/4 of the way through their route and they'll be full and gotta run up to the MRF to dump out. So we paying for them to go up there and then come back.
Right.
Exactly.
So, especially around the holidays and stuff, they fill up quick. So, And the 500,000, by the way, was just trucking. It didn't include tipping fees. So you're right.
That's the big bear.
That was just the trucking. That was just the additional cost of trucking the trash up to Johnston for a year. We also, like we talked about, you got all the other stuff like furniture, electronics, large PVC items like, people throwing swing sets and stuff
Mattresses,
away.
yeah.
Mattresses, we pretty much get rid of for free right now. It's a
Right.
good deal. But not couches and stuff. So that's, all that's got to go. Either we're going to send it up there and pay an astronomical fee, or we're going to try to do something as far as, grinding it up, and there's different ways to get rid of that stuff. So that's all got to get planned out pretty soon too, because when I spoke with Kim at the landfill, he said it's filling up fast. We're on the last stretch where the road used to be, because if you go up there's a new road that goes around to the left, and they're filling in the old road. Once that's filled in, we're pretty much done unless we apply for an extension.
It won't happen.
Well, there was a vote by the council when I was on there to do it, but then it never happened.
Well, I think they approached the state about that, and the state has pretty much said it's not going to happen.
No, we had PAR Engineering who did I don't know if anybody's seen the PAR report. It deals with the closure of the landfill. And that's how we got the estimate on what it was going to cost to close the landfill. And we had the same engineers go out and look, because the landfill, basically, we can go to a certain height. I'm sorry, I don't remember the altitude, but once we reach that height, we have to close. And the landfill is sinking under its own weight, so we have been able to reopen some areas. That's what Ms. Hilton was talking about the other day. DEM said we can continue to fill up on that hill a little bit. So, but once that's full, and then fortunately we have the bag program that was put in years ago, and the money's going to be there to pay for the capping. I think we're going to be covered. It's just the extra cost of now taking our trash to Johnston. But if we continue, like I said, if we get into those bins and lower our cost for transportation and make sure that everybody is recycling, we can, we might be able to manage it. I mean, it's not going to be,
Well, even after it closes, there are still going to be costs associated with maintaining the closure.
Yeah.
I have two comments, if I may. One comment is that it's my understanding that one of the big cost savings associated with the bins, it may have to do with the size of the trucks and whatnot too on the highway, less trips, but one of the other big drivers of cost savings is less workman's comp claims.
Yeah, right.
Apparently. So, because the workers aren't, throwing those bins and it's all automated and it's just a driver. So that's a big cost driver. And the other comment I was going to make, and this was back when the bag program started, and I had many debates with a lot of my town friends about this, and I was a supporter of the bags. When they started, the nice thing about the bag program was that everything we've seen about it, the money's been building up, the recycling went way up, it did all the right things, except it cost you $1 or $2 a week, but it did all the right things. But the nice thing is that when the landfill closes, okay, ideally, the money from the bags can now, it's not, well, we'll need a little bit maybe to cover the residual engineering each year, but generally speaking, the money is no longer going to need to go into the account and saved for the capping, and that money now from the bags can be allocated toward the transportation fees or the tipping fees, or that money, keep the bag program in place, I guess is what I'm saying, and now take the lion's share of that money and throw it toward this increase we see. So it works nicely, it dovetails nicely. Just when you cap the landfill, all of a sudden, you just get that done, and all of a sudden you get this increase in cost, and you've got that money freed up to allocate. So anyway, that was just a nice way that worked, which I saw back in the day. Anyway, that was my 2 cents.
Well, when we get Denise here, one of the questions we need to ask her is, how much money is in that fund? Where is it? And is it being tapped by anybody?
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure that came up last year, and it's a restricted account, and I can't remember the dollar amount that we discussed, but it's been building over the years, and they were pretty confident it was gonna cover the cost of that closure, so that we wouldn't incur anything more.
That would be quite a scandal, Jay. That would be quite a scandal if that was touched.
No, our agreement with DEM is pretty strict.
Yeah, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
It has to be landfill related, like if we were drilling another well up there or something, they could use it, but.
Well, they did use it, actually, they did use it recently for, okay, so,
Purchasing material.
there's a way of taking something and grinding it and making fill, and it ends up a cost savings, and you recycle, the way you recycle, so it can be used like toward the capping of the dump. So they might need 25,000 to do a process on a big pile of stuff once a year. So it can get used internally in the process, but it's pretty strict.
That's how we get rid of our yard waste now. We grind it up and mix it with the material, the dirt that comes in for the capping, for the daily cover. Once we're not doing daily cover anymore, all that yard waste is another, expense to either get rid of, because we can't run a compost facility.
But we can't.
Be a lot of lawn fires.
I'm not saying that there's anything, or suggesting there's anything underhanded going with that, but I have never seen a line item anywhere that defines what's in it.
Come back again, Jay?
I've never seen a line item in any town document, like 1002, for instance, that says landfill cap.
Oh, it's in the audit, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's in the audit.
I've missed it, but
Okay.
then, what's there?
Yep.
We used to, it's like almost 10 million, eh? It's up there.
Really?
Is it that high? Wow. That's
I
more than
think I
enough.
have all of it.
Okay.
I haven't seen a report in a while.
I'm going to give the floor to the administrator for a moment.
Landfill comes under DPW, and I fully expect that when you deal with the DPW budget, we will probably have to provide some update on what the status is of that. It's an account that is outside this particular budget, because it's a set-aside, restricted set-aside. But I think it makes sense, and I'm sure the council will want to get the same update as well.
Great.
And the other issues, there are lots of policy issues that will drive, or will be driven by cost. And you might want to consider, whether there should be a workshop at the council. Not necessarily here that the policy is being made, but there is a huge overlap in cost.
Thank you. So the number in this contract to within $12 is the number in Jan's spreadsheet. So I think we've done our diligence on this, and we all got to look at the contract, which was nice. And it will be part of our minutes and whatnot, so that's all good. Thank you, Jan, for providing that. Okay, so that ends our string of possibles, and I put the next item on the agenda, a discussion of docket and budget proposal with focus on tax levy determination calculation and resolutions. And some of this is going to be old hat for many of us in the room, but I thought with a few new people on the budget committee that we could talk about it for a minute or two or three. And at the same time, when we got to resolutions, maybe if we have a red pen, if we went through resolutions for, as everyone knows, it starts around sometime in March. It seems like we always say, oh, we got to do resolutions, and it's always a last minute and a rush, and so I thought maybe if we read through them, we could, with a red pen and the secretary, maybe we could note, at least note that, hey, these 6 are applicable, and these 2 were one-offs because of something we don't need, and at least we'll have it noted which ones we think we need, and so we're not just going through the exercise for nothing, and then we'll at least have something done when it comes time.
I'm sorry, are the resolutions in this?
Yeah, they're in the docket. They're in the docket, which looks like this. So, looking at the docket, there's, just going to go through it quickly, and anybody who's following this from home, the first phrase is in fact the resolutions. We'll get to those. The second page of the docket, sorry, it's labeled page 1, actually. The first part of it, everyone got it? The first part of it is what we call the budget proposal, and that's actually what sits on the FTR ballot. The town shall appropriate levy. Okay, so that's the nugget that actually sits on the ballot. And I wanted to point that out, and that's the output in the case of the budget proposal that's recommended by this committee. That'll be the output that makes it to the ballot from this committee. So the next umpteen pages are expenditures. So the first, looking at page 2, labeled page 2 is debt service. So we've already taken a crack at looking at that from the treasurer's standpoint. And then there are capital items, and then we just get into operational items. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. This is last year's docket. Everyone, just want to make sense. This is the one that was approved last year. Okay, so and it was proposed by the budget committee. So page 10, I'm just kind of flipping quickly here. Page 10, page 13, I'm going quickly through it. And page 15, page 16, 18, where are we? At the back of this docket, what's been happening the last few years, on page 20, is, which is nice, what's been happening is the revenues for the town. So revenue has a key meaning. It seems like, at least in Tiverton, you say revenue, and everyone just thinks, you know, sales or something. Well, in Tiverton, when people talk about revenues, they generally are talking about non-property tax revenues, meaning money that comes in for reasons other than taxes. So, for example, if you look at this list on page 20, town fees, recording fees, that's people who come in to record a mortgage, permits, impact fees, building permits, about 2/3 of the way down the page, and whatnot. So, and then you'll see a big one, the fourth from the bottom on page 20. Tiverton Power Associates, $800,000, okay? Now, just for example, that's $800,000 that comes into the town, and that is in lieu of taxes. That's under what they call a tax treaty, and that's for the power plant in the industrial park.
This is their last year for that agreement.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay, well, they'll probably want to sign a new one, because I think their assessment would be higher.
They just changed ownership too.
Yeah.
You can't, that was given to them to help pay the bonds off, and that was a 20-year agreement. They're not gonna get another tax break for,
They're not gonna ask for it again.
why should we give it to them? They already got it.
That's what I mean. They may ask for it, but they're not going to get it.
No, the assessment's already being revamped.
Right, that number's going to go bigger as an assessment, I would assume. We'll see.
There will be a new assessment.
Right.
By a specialist assessor.
Yeah, who does power plants. Okay, so long and short of it is, I just point that out because for the last 20 years or so, that number has been 700,000, creeping up to 800,000 under a tax treaty, and it's for the power plant that's in the industrial park, and that apparently will end, and it will just get assessed by a specialized assessor, and it will come through, and it'll come through the tax rolls in a traditional sense. It probably won't be on this list anymore at that point. So I wanted to point that one out. It's a big number, obviously. So next one, tower land rental. Now this is, I believe, all the towers around the town that have cell towers, and that used to be a pretty small number. I remember just a few years ago, in 2012, when I sat on this committee, that was like 120,000, 130,000, and now it's up to 230. Shows you, the cell towers are a big growing market. So that's, now I'm going to ask Jan, these towers are on town property, is that the deal?
Right.
Yeah, so there you go, $250,000 a year for that. So you get the idea. So these are all monies that come into the town from different revenue sources that are not property taxes. And some of them are very small, some of them are bigger. And the important thing is to look at the end right here, page 22. That's the important one. You see that number down at the bottom here, 13,748? 880, 13,748,000. Okay, just remember, 13,7, okay? So if we go back to the beginning here, I'm hoping there's a tally sheet, and I don't think I saw it, and now I'm gonna be made to look. Where is the calculation sheet? Is it not in this docket?
I think it's somewhere. Wait, it's,
I don't see it in here. I'm gonna look like a,
You mean the one that we did?
You know what I mean? There's no.
Yeah, I had it, and I didn't bring it tonight. I didn't think it would be.
Okay, so, let me do this. Let me pop open my laptop, and I'm gonna go to a different, I'll just grab any old docket. Usually they're in there, right?
No, usually they're not in the document.
No?
Page one.
I think I have one.
Oh, it's on page 1? It's not there, though. No, there's usually a sheet where we do the mathematics.
Tell you how you do the calculation.
Yeah. I'm gonna just fire up my machine here. I just wanted, that's the thing I wanted to go through. I just wanted to.
We submit it when we submit the budget, but we didn't necessarily end up in print anywhere.
It's okay, I'll find it online here. Just give me a sec here.
yeah.
Hopefully I can get into the network okay. Enable. Connect. Good. Okay, here we go. I'm almost confident that at least one from a couple of years ago, the town of Tiverton. Town of Tiverton, here we go. And then I can go right to online documents, scroll down to, I think this one had it, 2017.
18 has it too.
Is it up on the screen here? I gotta turn this back on. Okay, here's a sheet. Let me rotate it now. Rotate, that would be clockwise. Yeah, okay, is it on?
Yeah, it's up there, just hard to see.
Okay, so I'll do full screen. How do I do full screen? Oh, I know how, with my fingers, how's that?
Oh, that makes it better.
Okay, so this is just an example, okay? Whether that number was 13.7 or whatever it was, okay? That's the important thing. So if you go, thank you, Jan. So, is it clear? Yeah, great, awesome. So, just for example, especially for the new people, so the total budget is in this year, a couple of years ago, was 48 million, and that's all the expenditures, which is the bulk of the docket, those pages, and that's the sum of that. And then what happens is that the 10,000,005 you see right here where my mouse is, if, for example, last year, 2 years ago, that number was 13.7, that number I said, remember that number, so that was from the back of the docket, that summation, okay? And that included, by the way, the lion's share of that, like 5 or 6 or million of that is the school aid, right? Your operational school aid is what, 5, 6, 7 million, some big number. And we saw that, of course, 800,000 was the housing aid for the reimbursement on the bonds and so on and so forth. And then, so when you do subtraction there, you're left with 38 million. So this is the amount, okay, that you need to raise by taxation. Okay, so 38 million. So you need 48, you want to spend 48, you've got 10, you need to raise 38 million by taxes. We do a little fancy footwork with $25,000 because there's always this uncollectible tax amount that we work with the assessor to take care of, and do a small adjustment there. Less taxes imposed by motor vehicles. This is a weird thing that we're going to have to talk to the assessor about. I'm not even quite sure what's happening. Maybe someone could enlighten me. Would anyone know, there's something about the motor vehicle tax being phased out? I wasn't on the committee last year. Does anyone know what the status of that is? Yes, Jan?
Yes, there was a decision made to phase it out, and that started last year with a lot of confusion as to whether it would happen at the last minute. So different municipalities use different strategies. Some actually continued to collect and then had to reimburse. Others didn't collect because they didn't think it was going to happen. So it was a very confusing situation. It's becoming more confusing because there's a rumor that the phase-out will be suspended because of the big budget deficit the state is facing. So there's currently a discussion going on, and unfortunately, it just means a whole lot extra work for our financial departments, but we don't know at this point yet whether there will be a similar phase-out as we had last year, which then comes with a reimbursement from the state for the tax that we're not able to collect.
That could hurt.
Well, now, we still have the $6,000 exemption, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Well, unless the council voted otherwise.
no, that's still,
I believe so.
that would have to be voted by the people when we do the, yeah, the taxes voted on the FDR.
Well, ultimately, yeah, I guess it would in the end, yeah.
But, we actually got money from the state last year?
Yeah, the phase out, the 1905 times, yeah, I think so.
Did they lower further beyond 6,000, or how did they do it?
I don't know exactly. The best thing would be to ask the tax
Yeah.
assessor for how that.
Yeah, because I know we were already, remember the first time they gave up on it, and the town got hit pretty hard, but even though, they had to close town hall and everything else, remember? 7 days a week, but we still kept the 6,000 in, so.
Yeah, and a lot of communities didn't.
No,
Back in, even in 2012, when there was a
yeah.
vote, I remember, I sat on the budget committee then, there was a lot of communities that did away with the 6,000 exemption,
Yeah.
and the communities grabbed, the government grabbed the money, and then the people got taxed in the full amount.
Yeah.
Whereas, so Tiverton did not.
So
This is turning out to be like the 7% temporary sales tax.
Yeah. So, anyway, getting back to it here. So what happens is this motor vehicle number, 1,000,005, it's always there. Sometimes it's 1,000,005, sometimes it's 1,000,006. It just seems like it's always there. But it's sort of a fixed number that gets calculated somewhere else, but we don't need to tax for it in that amount. So it gets subtracted off, okay, of the 38 million, because it doesn't have to go into real estate taxes. It's money we need, it's money historically we've gotten from another tax bucket. But we don't need to levy it in real estate because we get it from the motor vehicle means. So you subtract that out and you're left with 36.6 million in this given year. And this 36.6 million becomes a tax levy. Okay, that becomes a tax levy. So when you hear tax levy, that's the number for the real estate. Well, actually, I take that back. The tax levy includes the 1.5 million, but this is the real estate levy. This is what gets levied on the real estate. And then what happens is the town itself in this given year was worth 1.9 billion if you added up all the assessments in the town, and included tangible property, which I think is like somebody who reports their jewelry or their computers in businesses and whatnot. So 1.9 billion, and then you do the division of this and this, and you come up with a tax rate of 1919, which then, of course, prorates back to everyone's house value, and prorates back and multiplies by your assessments. So I just wanted to, there's some new people on the commission, maybe some new people in the audience. I wanted to go over this once on how this works, and I thought for the 10 minutes we spend on it, it might be fruitful to know. And unfortunately, last year's docket doesn't seem to have it in there, but you can just flip to an older one. Ruth said that the one after this had it too. There's plenty of these sheets around if you ever want to reference them. But this is sort of the high level. At the end of the day, this is where the sausage is made. At the end, this is where the sausage is made. So, at the high level for the amount of the taxes increase, decrease, whatever. So I just wanted to share that. Any questions on that?
Most you will make bratwurst this year instead of sausage.
So you'll notice we had 13 that. last year, for whatever, I don't know what's happened, but the 10.5 from 2 years ago was it 13.6, I said, remember that number? Well, we know 700,000 was the casino money that was used, but still 13 million versus 10, I'm not sure that, I wasn't around for a couple of years, so I don't really know what that increase was, but certainly a lot bigger number, so that's probably a good thing. But that number, that 10.5 number is the revenue. When people say, oh, we don't have a lot of non-property tax revenue, that's the nugget that everyone's pointing at. So, any other discussion on that? Jan?
I think this may be a good point to mention something about what the discussion that will need to happen once I submit my budget request. It has to do with this calculation, which is why I think it's appropriate to bring it up now. It will present different categories of expenditures that we think need to be made, and it will not at that time have the final or even the preliminary revenue estimates. But at the same time, we are developing, the preliminary budget request with some ballpark idea of what the revenues are and could be. The big question becomes, with this capital budget idea that I have and I think is necessary to implement, whether that is in the overall number that you have of the total proposed budget for the town, which then is followed by an automatic conclusion that all of that has to be funded by taxation. That's not necessarily true. It's how it has been done traditionally, but there certainly is a different way of doing it. And I just wanted to mention, and I know there will probably be a lot of discussion about this, that what I have tried to do with developing this budget is be very focused on trying to identify the real needs of the town. And in my opinion, and I know I'm not alone, there is a lot of need that has not been addressed in particular capital expenditures. And if we are not careful, that need is only becoming more expensive as time goes by. Because when you don't deal with it, it becomes more expensive to fix it. And as I said at the budget workshop last Saturday, the problem doesn't go away, it just becomes more expensive. I feel responsible for laying out to both the council and the budget commission what the capital needs are that I have tried to identify. And I'm not the only one. I know that it was talked about with, for example, the transfer station is a good example. But the question becomes, how do you pay for it? And that's related to the question of what is the effect on taxes. And I just want to put it out there that in my opinion, there are ways, we now have an opportunity to pay for some of these significant capital needs without necessarily increasing taxes. And that is by looking at the casino model, which then raises the question, okay, well, what about the ballot question that we have that was not voted in? And I just wanted to explain that from my observations, I think it was narrowly defeated, but largely based on a lot of what I call rhetoric that was thrown around, as if what was attempted was to hide money from the taxpayers or to control money by a very small number of people. And I think that got a lot of people worried, and therefore they would vote against that particular ballot question the way it was phrased. I don't think the vote was necessarily that you should never use casino revenue for true expenses that the town faces. So my recommendation and request is actually going to be that both the council and the budget committee consider to what extent it actually makes financial sense to use the casino money for some of those capital expenses. And it will be probably maybe an unpleasant surprise as to what the magnitude is of those capital needs. But I think the choice is that if you use casino money to pay for those expenses, you actually have a beneficial impact on the tax rate, i.e. the tax rate doesn't have to go up, and it may actually either immediately or over the longer term go down. And that's a very sustainable way of, holding the tax rate either level or reducing it. Whereas if you start paying it out on a year-to-year basis, you also will not be able to do what a capital budget does, which is to predict what's coming down the road, plan for it, and while you're planning, trying to spread it out in a way that what I call avoids shocks to the system. One year you have a wonderful year, we don't necessarily have to do anything this year. Next year, you have to pay God knows how much money to pay for new trucks or a new building or whatever it may be. So the plan is, and it will be part of my submittal, a 5-year capital plan that will be rolling so that you can discuss and make these decisions in context. These are the issues. I'm not the decision maker to say it should be accepted as something that money on this amount of money but I'm going to provide information.
Thank you for those words.
I'm speaking for myself, my personal opinion, not the whole budget. When I sat on the budget committee, and even before, when I used to come here and sit in the audience and watch the meetings, and watch department heads come before the budget committee and say, oh, the truck is totally worn out, the engine's worn out, blah, 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 we need a new truck. So we bought a new truck. But that old truck was still in service and still being used as a backup, but it was, anytime they needed to go get a coffee or something. So that truck was still being used around town and was used as backup. Well, we were told the engine was so bad and the brakes were so bad. So if you're going to come, or a budget member's going to come before this committee and try to convince me I need some professional analysis done on those trucks, or a roof, or vehicle. I want to see estimates, I want to see professional. There's a thing called an oil analysis. If you're telling me the engine's worn out, I want an oil analysis done. Petro does it. Not Petro here oil, but Petro Corporation. You can send a sample of the oil out, they'll tell you the condition of the engine based on what's in the oil. Because as bearings wear down, the material bearings are made of changes. So they can determine what's in there and tell you if that engine is worn out. So when we're talking about trucks that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, like dump trucks and pumpers and things for the fire department, I need to see something that shows me that that truck, if we buy a Peterbilt or a Freightliner, they run up and down the highways, they run 1 million miles on those tractor trailers and more, as long as they're maintained. And we buy heavy, heavy chassis ambulance and things. So when you're telling me that this truck is worn out and it's only 8 years old, I don't believe it. So unless you can show factual evidence, and there are ways to show it, including I will be going out and look at the stuff myself. I mean, I have a little bit of knowledge, but in the past we've been told things that weren't true. It wasn't shiny enough. That was the problem, in my opinion. The paint was faded.
If I may just start responding to that. There are a few things. I have as much a need for good information to justify the expenses that we propose in the budget. So I have the same questions for department heads, and in particular, in this case, the DPW, but it also applies to fire apparatus and police vehicles and what have you. To start with the last issue about the car still being, or the vehicle still being around and us maintaining them properly, there has been an issue with that. And that's also a question on the operating side, whether we actually provide mechanics with the resources to keep these vehicles proactively in good condition or not. And I think we're making now finally good headway. We have excellent mechanics, one in the police department, 1.5 in the DPW, who also are getting today's equipment so you can actually diagnose the problem. We were fixing trucks without diagnostic equipment.
Well, we have a budget to send those trucks out too. We give them money for stuff that.
I mean, with all due respect, if you think it's cheaper or more efficient.
I didn't say that.
No, so.
I said when the mechanic at Public Works couldn't fix it, like the ambulance. I remember one time they had an ambulance, the light kept going out. I went down there and they had like wires running out. And I says, how come all this is like this? Well, I had a hot wire because I don't have a schematic, okay? I mean, I've been around, I've seen a lot of this stuff. And we had like $20,000 in the maintenance budget, but they could have sent that up to the shop and had it repaired properly. So, you know, sometimes it's management.
Well, it is
pushing
management.
the Public Works down there to do things they shouldn't even be doing.
You will be able to question both the DPW director and me as to why the proposed expenses we think are necessary and what kind of homework has gone into exploring what our options are and what the best way to go is. The little that I have learned in the short time that I've been here is that we've had to send out equipment way too often and that it's way more expensive than it needs to be simply because we didn't have the right equipment or enough people to do the maintenance. That's an issue that needs to be dealt with. Secondly, and I'm going to give you a very honest opinion on this. I respect your knowledge, but I don't believe for a minute that it is the Budget Committee that is going to decide how you repair cars or how you choose what cars need to be. We need to be able to explain it, and we should be held accountable. But it's not the Budget Committee that's going to tell us, you know, which truck to buy or whether to buy a truck. You know, except for financial reasons. If there's not enough money to pay for it, that's one thing. But it's not the expertise of this commission, in my opinion. And it would be very difficult for us to do our job, you know, if that is just going to be completely, whatever we say goes out the window because you are going to decide.
No, what I said was, if you bring me something that shows me that engine is worn out, like an oil analysis done by an independent lab, it shows me, okay, the bearings are worn out in the motor. I mean, it's going to blow up, okay?
But that's not part of the budget process.
Oh, no, well,
Yeah, it is.
yes, it is,
Yes,
because
it
we give Public Works money for outside maintenance and things like that.
Then you should insist.
We fund the mechanic and we also fund the maintenance budget.
You should insist on a process when we manage our department and we manage the need to deal with the vehicles and the repairs and what have you, that there is enough documentation at that time to show that we're doing it the right way. To start second-guessing the whole operation in the budget process, to me, is counterproductive.
Well, at one time, we had a policy, and I'm still for it. When one ambulance is paid for, we buy another one. We don't buy another one until that ambulance is paid for, because they're very expensive.
Well,
And we're buying the
That's
best.
a policy decision that I believe belongs with the council
Well,
and not in the budget committee.
what makes you think the council's any smarter about it?
I'm not saying they're smarter, I'm talking about what the charter expects from the, from
Can I
this
say
commission
something?
versus the.
I let this run a little bit. I want to start reeling it back in. No, it's fine, I let it go. I just looked around the table and, it's good, it's good.
You don't have to gavel me.
I want to reel it in and keep moving too. Does anybody else want to talk on this subject? And,
I just have one really quick thing.
Go ahead.
So, we're just starting out for the year, we're all going, I'm sure we're going to have heated debate on things. But one thing I think that we need to keep in mind, we talk a lot about the past, and I understand that there have been difficulties in the past that have put us where we are today. But for our purposes, we need to look at the condition that things are today and how we improve them and how we go forward from this point on. So if there is, just an example, I'm not a mechanic, but I got in a truck last year that had no floorboards, didn't have an odometer that moved. I couldn't believe anybody was driving this. You would never drive it in your own home. So I think we have to, when we go to look at site visits, look at the current condition. I understand it's in that condition and whatever happened in the past to get it in that condition, but how do we improve going forward? And one of the things about this process that is always kind of daunting to me is that we only look at 1 year. We're looking at 1 year. We don't look going forward 2, 3, 4, 5, so that we don't get ourselves into these situations where we have 1 year where you have, you know, you need all these vehicles, or you need all these repairs, or because they got skipped last year. So I think that we kind of need to stay in that lane a little bit too, and see, because we have a unique opportunity this year with some revenue that's new, to look at how do we plan better for the future so that we don't currently stay on this path. And that's the only way you can improve it. Otherwise, you're just going to continue down that road of kicking the can, you know, down the road.
I'd like to say I agree, and I think it sounded like the tax assessor was saying that that's what the mechanics and the things like that have been hired are doing, is it sounds like they're trying to start looking forward and making a plan.
And we have a lot of new, this DPW gentleman is new, so I don't think they can necessarily pay for errors that were made in the past. So let's give everybody the opportunity to be clear-headed and look and kind of see how we make improvements.
Ruth?
Yeah, actually, we did look last year at all the vehicles and what was needed in coming up in the future by what happened in the past. They gave us whole sheets of all the list of vehicles. We have been doing that. And also, the reason that we are looking at the past is it informs about the future. I mean, I saw the same truck you did, and I found out that they didn't put mats down, and the salt is what, when they got in with their boots, is what rusted it. So that's why anybody, even a taxpayer, should be able to ask, why didn't you buy those protective floor mats? It's anybody could ask that question. It's very concerning when we're paying, and we may have doubled the budget in 10 years for those people, and nothing really got better. So that's the value that people talk about, that we're not seeing, we haven't seen, and maybe even in other areas besides DPW. And so, yes, we're very concerned about how things are done. Maybe Rick Rogers is going to do a great job of protecting the vehicles, but we've seen some really bad things. That's why.
In my opinion, that would be job performance and not capital. So if you were given a vehicle that you did not properly maintain, that would be under the DPW's job performance. You're still left with a truck with no floorboards. However
Right, so-
you want it, however it got there, it still doesn't have a
But the
floorboard.
Budget Committee is
I
not,
just want to add that we already financed a new truck to replace
No,
that
I'm
truck,
just using
but they
that as
didn't
an
take the truck off the road, and that's what I'm talking about.
they didn't tell the truth.
That truck should have been taken off the road. It was already replaced with that. We got a 1-ton, and then we got the truck for the new maintenance guys that took Bobby Martin's place. So we bought 2 trucks. That truck was supposed to be taken off the road. That's the same thing with ambulances. We buy a new ambulance, and the old ambulance seems to go into second service. We were only supposed to be running 2 ambulances. Next thing you know, there was 2 up in Fall River, and they were running the old one that was supposedly no good around the service Tiverton. So, you know, I know we got a new administrator and a new public works director, and I'm glad. But some of the things that happened in the past, you can't forget them, and we can't allow it to happen again.
Correct.
But that truck with the floorboards wasn't even safe to be on the road, and that's why we replaced it. That was supposed to be sold in auction, but why did we keep it?
Okay. So I just have a more global comment, and hopefully, maybe it'll be the last one on this topic, but I do want to make it because I was going to make it a while ago, and that is that the following a year ago, the Charter Review Commission proposed to have a capital fund, and they proposed a number, different amounts were proposed of the casino money were proposed to go into this capital fund, and an initial number that the Charter Review Commission said was 25% of the casino money would go into this capital fund, and that was like an initial, and to the amazement of some people, the council that was seated then wanted nothing to do with the capital fund. So, anyway, I have a hard time wrapping my arms around that when there was a capital fund sitting in front of a prior council, a year and a half ago, whenever it was, that council wanted nothing to do with the capital fund. So that's something that I have a hard time wrapping my arms around, and I just wanted to share that I struggle with that. And it's just sort of one of the things that I think about driving down the road. So, any other comments, or can we move on to the resolution part?
I'll just make one comment, and it goes to resolutions.
Great.
If we as a body want to have a capital fund, we can do a resolution. We've done resolutions before. We've
Okay.
done restricted accounts by resolution. So I guess we can sort of create a capital fund, and then it will be up to the voters to decide at the FTR, do we want it to? And do we want the amount to be whatever the Budget Committee recommends?
Yeah, it'd be a one-year thing, right?
Yeah.
It would only last
Well,
1
yeah.
year, right?
So keep in mind then that a lot of these resolutions are boilerplate, but then there are some that are kind of very descriptive and sort of nail down what you want. In any event, all the resolutions, and this became, it was brought up last year on one particular resolution that had been going on for years and had never been renewed. It just kept on going on and on. And that was the one about the stamp tax revenue going to open space, or, you know, and some to the town, some to open space. So resolutions have to be redone and approved every year. And there's no limit to how many there can be.
So that's a really interesting point, and one thing that I can say that, one thing that I do like about that is that it requires voter approval. And so that's just, you know, I haven't fully thought that through in my head, but I do like the fact that it requires voter approval. Yes, yeah?
On that, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one thing I want to say whenever I have the opportunity is that when we propose to create a capital budget, which is different in and of itself from whether you create a capital fund or not. There's several mechanisms that could be used. I think what happened last year was a discussion that suggested that any decisions about capital expenditures using casino money would not be subject to the same public process that you're going through right now. And I think that created a lot of unnecessary concern and disagreements. I have seen this work in other places where capital budget are funded through appropriations.
Like this?
Like this, same way. I think the general concept really is that, well, first of all, what we haven't mentioned is that there's going to be a fairly significant property tax increase from the casino as well, so that will help. But then with respect to the non-tax revenue, it can actually go into the general fund, and then a decision can be made whether to appropriate some of those general fund monies to a capital budget. Whether you do that by creating a capital fund or just making appropriations to accounts in a capital budget, that's a discussion that I think you might want to have the treasurer involved, and I know the town council will want to be involved in that as well. But the important thing, for me at least, is to say that when we say we make these decisions, or the council and the budget commissions make these decisions, it can go through a very similar, if not the very same process, which is why I submit it altogether. The other thing is that one characteristic of capital funds is typically that they're not fiscal year funds. You put the money in, it's very difficult to nail down whether that particular expenditure will in fact be made in that fiscal year. You do try it, and you should, and we should be held accountable for it, but frequently there are balances left that roll over. Now, the rollovers don't have to be automatic, and that's where, again, resolutions come in. There's usually a resolution saying, you know, the following rollovers are approved because, you know, it has been documented that the need continues, the department is ready to make the expenditure within X number of months or whatever it is. So you know, you approve those rollovers, whereas other rollovers don't get approved because either the need has been gone away or another solution has been found. But all of it is very transparent. Open, you know, to any taxpayer to know what's going on and why.
What you're describing is not that much different than what the Charter Review Commission proposed a year and a half ago.
Just real quick, in years past, we've had lists come to us of all the vehicles registered and surplus from each department. I'm hoping we're going to see that again this.
The council asked for the same thing, do an inventory of all the vehicles with the year of acquisition, the condition, the
Where's the
mileage.
surplus?
We got it last year, so
Yeah, I
I
saw-
imagine they'll give it back.
Surplus vehicles?
They listed them all.
Everything.
They listed everything,
I
yeah.
sent that to Rob and the town council. Those, let them know that we got them.
Okay. Can we move on to, well, Jay, we move on to resolutions. We're going to move on to resolutions. Jay brought up a resolution, which was a great kernel of thought and discussion. I'd like to, if it's okay, can we move on from that topic that you just brought up, or do you want to stay on it, about this CapEx resolution, or have we, for tonight, discussed that enough?
Do you mean, do we want to discuss any specific
No,
resolutions? Or just the-
what you brought up of the concept, have we discussed the concept that you brought up enough tonight? Or
I think so. It
Okay,
just gives
yeah.
everybody an overview
Yeah,
of what
no.
they are and how they got there,
Yeah, good idea, yeah.
and what we
Okay,
have to do with them.
right. So what I'd like to do is, just to, so we can say, hey, we made some progress tonight, is on page, the resolutions, first of all, on page A for everybody, and if anybody's looking at this stuff on the TV, the first items are town council resolutions, so I'm not going to really pay a lot of attention to those on page A. And then there are some petitioner resolutions, and I'm not going to pay a whole lot of attention to those at the moment. But on page 1, underneath the budget proposal, there are the budget committee resolutions. So I thought maybe we could just go through those quickly, and I started with my pen, and just see, are these all going to, do we think, at least first cut now on January 10th, do we think these are all going to be valid? And if we can walk out of here and say, yeah, we think they are, then, you know, when we get to that night when it's really late in March, we can at least say, hey, we looked at them and we think we just need to redraft these as needed. Does someone want to read these? Just read through them quickly out loud. I'm getting a little tired. Does someone want to read them, or?
I'll read them.
Okay, Ruth, go ahead. So just read through them, and we'll just talk about them quick, and we'll...
Resolved that the expense and revenue budgets, both itemized by account, that support the proposal for appropriations and tax levies, which receives a majority of votes cast by the electors at this financial town referendum, shall be adopted as the Tiverton General Fund budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2019.
Okay. I think we want that one,
Yeah.
right? That just locks in the line items to the budget proposal. Everyone got a consensus on that? Okay.
Number 2, resolved that all municipal capital accounts be restricted for their intended purpose and that no transfers are authorized out of those accounts.
That's been around for decades. Everyone agree? Consensus? Okay, great. Thank you, Ruth.
3, resolved that if the electors at the financial town referendum appropriate a sum for municipal operations and capital expenses that includes an amount to fund the revaluation account, said amount shall be placed in the restricted revaluation reserve account to be used solely for the purpose of funding property revaluations.
I'm not as familiar with this one, but I know that Mr. Robert got what he wanted on this, and I completely respect everything that he does. With somebody who's been continuous on the committee for a few years now, so this is obviously a repeat. This has been working fine, been untouched for a few years, this one?
Yeah, what happens is they have to do statistical
Yep, the revals,
evaluations
yep.
and full-blown reevaluations, and if I remember right, I may be wrong, a full-blown is like $300,000.
Right, and the other ones are like 100.
Yeah, and we're coming up on one of those fairly soon, and if we don't have the money pre-positioned in an account somewhere to pay for that, it's going to be an oh my God.
It takes the home part
Okay.
out of the
So we have a line item in the docket called somewhere, I'm not gonna look, but we have a line item somewhere in the docket that says revaluation, and we kind of like figured out, hey, look, long-term, we need this much, and then we plop it in there, and then we restrict it, and that's what this
So
does.
restricted roll.
And then it works out that we have enough for the cycle thing every 9 years.
Restricted and it
Right.
rolls.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that it doesn't turn over to the general fund like
Yeah,
other
right.
lines go.
Right, and so then when we have to do it, we don't have a glitch, a $200,000 gotcha.
At least we have most of it.
Okay. All right, so I think we want that, right?
Yeah.
Consensus? Okay, thank you. Next, Ruth?
5, resolved that account 5540, 6794, paving drainage shall be a restricted account to be used solely for the purpose of paving drainage.
Joe?
Yeah.
That's yours.
No, that's another one that's been in there for quite a few
Yep,
years.
no, I was just letting you. Okay, so consensus on the paving drainage? I know that's just pet peeve.
Did we skip number 4?
We did skip number
Okay,
4.
that's
Okay,
what I thought.
sorry.
That's all
Okay,
right.
so we'll do
Number 4.
That's a long one, Ruth, go.
resolved, number 4, resolved that if the electors at this financial town referendum appropriate a sum for municipal operations and capital expenses that includes an amount to fund the elections account, said amount shall be placed in a restricted elections reserve account to be used solely for the purposes of funding future elections and financial town referendum runoffs if necessary.
That seems like a new one to me, but that's
It's kind of
okay.
the same deal along with the
Yeah.
tax
Yeah, it's been
assessment.
there.
We know on average for an election year, we need 15 grand, an off year, we need this much, and
Yeah.
so we figured out the amount. And
Nancy
flat
tells us
line it.
every year,
Yeah.
you know, what we've got coming up and why she needs more or
We
less.
need more or less.
All right. So there's an account, though, that has a running total, like, well, we got 8 grand in there now, and then we kind of,
Right.
we just kind of figure it
FDR,
out.
I think, comes off of that account.
Right.
as well.
I have a question, and being new, I'm sorry. So, for ones like that, is there, if it's an account, and you said that there's like a set amount, is it a specific set amount that they set for them to continue to get every year for those resolutions?
It depends on the year. So if it's like a presidential year,
Right,
it's going to be more
more,
costly.
okay,
That's why we build up in the years of non-presidential.
Okay.
elections.
So the state dictates how many election polls are open, and in a presidential, all of them are open.
so it's just rolling over when she's not using it, or when they're not
So it goes
using
higher and
Yeah.
lower,
Okay.
Right.
depending on the year.
Some portion of it is used every year for the FDR, and then you go into like the election that we just had, which might have been less, and then when we go into the presidential year, and it just carries that.
Okay.
Primaries and everything else.
Exactly, and if there's runoffs, like for the FTR, then it's even more. So it allows that we have that money
Yeah.
available. And
That's like a
Nancy
buffer.
watches that.
Yeah, so for example, if we need 11 grand for an FTR, and let's say it's a non-election year, we still might put 15 in there. I'm just gonna guess what's going on here. We might put 15 in even, and then there's an extra 4,000. But then the next year, we might need 30 because it's a presidential year. And, now we've got, we've sort of helped to
buffer.
level it out,
Right.
right? Is that probably what goes on? Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody can touch it, so it's not like,
Right.
you go, oh, I have 4 grand, I'm gonna buy.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna keep that one consensus. Go ahead, Ruth, number 6.
5, and so we're going to 6. Resolve that any unencumbered funds as of June 30, 2019 will be returned to the general fund, with the exception of Public Works Department operations unencumbered funds that will be placed in the restricted paving drainage account, 5540-6794.
I believe that one was new.
Well,
But it
they
was
changed it.
because,
Something, yeah.
Edited it last year, edited it.
They changed it a little
Well,
bit.
the
What's
way it was worded,
unencumbered funds?
the purpose of that was because the new Public Works Director, I'm sure, has done a tour of the town. The old one certainly did, and we have some big problems with roads and drainage and the like, and it gets kind of expensive fast.
There wasn't a percentage before that, wasn't it, like
There
30%?
was, there was a percentage.
Yeah.
The paving and drainage were two different
Combined.
counts.
Merged.
They merged them, so we changed the wording because at first it was just paving, but he really needed a lot for the drainage to go with the paving.
Yeah, there was some conversation last year about, I'm trying to think of what, Anderson said.
He requested this.
He requested it merged because you can't pave the road if you don't fix, like, there was some that they didn't have the money to fix, like, the drain.
base.
So he's like, okay, you're gonna pave the road, but it's just gonna sink in. It needed to be combined so that they could fix the drainage and then do the road, because
Right,
you
so
were
he had
gonna
the
kind of
discretion.
fight it off, so that was merged last year.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Jan. Had his hand up.
So on this one, my expectation is that this could be kept. However, I think it's important to know that we will propose that this particular paving and drainage will be moved into the capital budget. That doesn't mean that you can't have a similar account or the same account even there, but it may lead to a slightly different wording.
You brought that up last year too, didn't you? To do it that way.
Say what?
Last year, we had that discussion, didn't we, about creating a capital account for draining and paving?
I must be repressing it.
No, I think you're right, Jeff.
Pretty sure we did.
I think we did.
I don't remember why it didn't happen, but.
It did happen, but
Can someone explain to me, who's more of an accountant than I am, so, and before we had this, what, an unencumbered fund means that somebody had $1,000, they spent $500, and they didn't spend the other $500, and the council didn't take it and say, we're going to transfer, and it just sat there, and the end of the year came on June 30th, and there was $500 there. That's an unencumbered fund. It never got spent, it never got
That's what I was
allocated,
gonna ask.
transferred, swept, nothing, right? That's an unencumbered fund? Okay, so that used to just sweep per charter to the general fund, right?
that's what it says here.
Okay, that's what it used to do. But now, under this here, it would sweep to, 100% of that money would sweep,
Only DPW.
oh, only DPW money, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. Yeah, okay, I get you, I'm getting tired. Okay, only DPW money, not all, I was thinking that's a lot of money. Okay, potentially, okay.
No, actually, Denise said last year, the people that were here last year, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it somewhere in the range of $5,000, $7,000, $8,000?
Oh, we're not talking,
It wasn't much at all.
we're not talking big money. Okay, I was thinking it was all the unencumbered
No,
funds,
no,
which might have been, 100K or
Just
$200K.
the public works departments.
Gotcha.
What they didn't manage to spend, I don't know why they wouldn't.
And it fell through the cracks, yeah. They didn't know they had it, right.
So that one, we may want to think about deleting if we decide after hearing the administrators. Should I put down that we're?
Well, that one may
wanna
need,
keep-
if we
may
keep
need
it,
to
we
be-
may need to, we could keep it as is, or.
Or
if-
consider
if-
the
if-
verbiage
yeah, we
might
may need
change.
to. All these might need a little alteration.
I'm just
but
making notes by ones we think
Thank
we
you.
might want to.
Yeah, I think the
Consider.
reason for going through these now is just a sanity check in concept,
Right.
and-
So I can keep notes for when we do decide to go through them.
So we can
for
say
real.
we did something tonight,
Okay.
concrete, anyway, without a budget in front of us. Okay, so that's a consensus for now to keep that one. I get a consensus on that? Okay. I was going to question it if it was all the unencumbered funds, so. Okay, number 7, go ahead, Ruth.
Resolved that the town, once all provisions of the charter and accounting requirements are met, shall transfer out of the unexpended municipal expense appropriation determined as of June 30th, 2019, 25% to the restricted paving drainage account number 55406794, and 25% to the restricted capital 09809999 expenditure account.
Okay. So that's, now this is almost what I was speaking of, no?
Yeah, this is where you were going.
This is everything else.
This
So-
is anything but public works.
25%.
25% goes to paving drainage. So 50% of everything else gets used up by this. 25% goes to paving drainage, and 25% goes to, what is the restricted capital expenditure account? What the heck is that? Excuse my French.
That was an attempt to build a capital fund so that we could start to purchase capital items or capital repairs without having to go to bond or to borrow.
Was that new last year?
That was, I think that it was new last year, but we have been talking about it for a number of years,
Yeah.
and we finally did put it on.
Yeah.
So 50% of the leftover funds, not including DPW, 50% would go into the general fund, and 25 would go into the restricted paving drainage, 25% to the restricted capital.
We used to put it all into
Right.
paving.
No, we used to.
No,
put
no,
it
no,
all
this
in
is,
general
this is
fund.
everything that's not
No, I'm
DPW.
saying like the snowplow account, if we had extra snowplow money, that used to go into paving and.
Well, yeah, that's what the one.
All the DPW,
Left
the
over from
DPW.
goes into paving, and then it comes in
But we were
now
also,
with.
no, we were also at one time scooping municipal accounts. It's been a while ago.
Well, the town council could
Louise
at
Durfee was
any
on
time
budget.
redelegate funds from one account to
Yeah.
another, and they do.
So.
At the end of the year, what this was, let's say, all the other entities in town, other than Public Works, let's just say, had $100,000 left over. What this says is 50,000 will go in the general fund, 25,000 will go to paving, 25,000 will go to the restricted capital, which was new, and that would be that.
Right. So, of course, this one, again, depends on the stuff that Jan's talking about, and there's going to be, obviously, there's a lot of, depending on what happens there and what we decide and whatnot. So, I guess I want to ask the question on this one. We could decide, on the consensus to just kind of keep it there, we're going to keep it, and we're going to modify it as we see fit down the road as things unfold, or we could nix it, or I don't know. What's the mood what's the mood now?
I'd like to revisit it later on down the
Revisit
road. I don't want to throw it out yet. And also, too, I'd like to, when we get the information as to how we went this year, like what we think is actually dollar amounts that are going in there, because I think that helps a little bit, because if it's a small dollar amount, if it's a larger dollar amount, and I'd also like to see how it's being utilized as to, like, what exactly is getting paved, what's on the plan. I know there's somewhere, there's a list of what streets are going to get done when, and what new needs that we may need to put these funds to, because as we're fixing them, we're getting worse.
So could we have a consensus to leave it on there for now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And
So
then
we're going to leave them all on
revisit
there, and we're going to, we know with all, we didn't vote, we know with all of these, we're going to obviously, if we need to wordsmith them or mold them into a new paradigm, we will. So that was good, though. At least now we know that we've gone through them, and there's always a crunch at the end, and at least we've done that much.
I'd like to revisit that too, like when they come and talk to us and we know more, like when Denise comes and DPW comes, maybe we talk about it then, because I think you get to that last night and you're trying to get everything going, and you're like, okay, it's really the most tired part of the night when you're trying to discuss them. And
These resolutions are always at the end, that's why I did.
Yeah, well, I think like
Yeah, that's a good
after
idea.
the presentations are done and we have numbers and we hear more, then maybe we look at those individually as how they pertain to that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
after DPW and after Denise meets with us, maybe we talk about that one.
So we'll put them on the agenda in a month or something.
This was an initial
Yeah,
look.
so that you're not crunching at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And
I
then
agree.
you're trying to remember that presentation that you may have heard weeks before.
But I
Yeah,
think-
Jen,
I
you
think it
meant this
is
as
a-
an initial look.
I
I
think
think
it-
it's a great idea, Jeff. Thank you for doing it.
I think it is a good idea to look at it, because at least it puts that seed in everyone's mind. Everyone knows
Yeah.
what the thought is, and as we go along with the budget process, if there are some areas that we really have needs that we don't know right now, as we look and as we get presentations from the department heads, and they're telling us of needs that we may not even be aware of, that we can kind of think about that as we go along.
And I felt, thank you, I felt also with the new people on the commission that, we got to learn what a resolution is too, so, yeah, it all kind of made sense. Okay, great, so I've got check marks, Sherry noted it, fantastic. That ends that agenda item, so we'll march on here. We're doing good, and great. Next one is year-to-date, so there's another thing in here, and I don't really want to take a ton of time, except just to get everyone looking at it. We can do this from two standpoints. There's two documents in here called, they both have a red draft on them, year-to-dates, and I had asked, I don't know who put these in the pile, but Nancy Mello copied them for us, which is wonderful.
The treasurer provides.
Treasurer did them, okay, it was the treasurer.
The treasurer does these on a regular basis,
Monthly, right?
and we use them for our own purposes, but they're always in the council
Okay.
packet as well.
Right, so these do not include, I don't know if these, I think the run date on these, I thought I heard her in her cover letter, she said does not include December.
Yeah, she
Um,
said that it was, that December's was not in it yet.
Not in it yet, yeah, which is fine. So, anyway, let's look at the, let's just pick the one expenses, okay? So that's the thicker one, of course, is the thicker one, expenses, right? So what happens here is all these are the accounts, these should map directly, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but these should map directly to the docket, right? All these line items, these are our budgets, right? These are, so if we look and say, oh, okay, a 10-wheel dump truck body, I think we'll see that somewhere in a docket, and we should anyway. And then we should see an amount of money that we put in the budget, $28,000, and we have $28,000 left. So we haven't spent any money toward that, in theory, this year, okay? So these are the year-to-dates. And sometimes what happens is, when we're doing, in about a month and a half from now, it's handy to look at the most recent report and to just get a feel for hey, look, we're buying paper, but, we're not using as much paper as we thought we were, or whatever it is. And then sometimes the town administrators say, I got a reason for that. But generally speaking, it can be handy to look across and to get some idea, especially like as we approach, when you start getting 8-9 months into the year, you can start to get a feel for, was the oil heavy or light or whatever it was, or not so much oil, but, because you can never tell with that, but certain items, if they're running heavy or light. So I didn't really want to dwell on these or necessarily drill them down, but I mainly just wanted to put them out there like, hey, we got our first revenue report, it's the most current one we could get, our expenditure report, and so that everyone has an idea that this is available, and that we'll probably start looking at these later, and you're welcome to look at them now.
And can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I do see the paving account 6794 on page
Page what?
7. It's not called paving drainage, but it's there.
Correct.
What you got? Page 7.
Toward the bottom, 6794, they talk about that it was in the resolution.
Okay, so we had budgeted last year 335. Oh, I guess we transferred in 243,000?
What are we looking at?
I'm about 8 from the bottom on page 7, paving account.
Oh, okay. We budgeted 335.
And then we transferred it. Have we done any, Joe?
It's all still there.
Revised budget.
Okay, it's all there, so we haven't any paving. But yeah, the paving's a funny one, right? Because a lot of times we let it build up for a few years because we want to do like.
Well, it's in the spring is when they usually start.
Right.
And if I remember right last year,
Surprised they
when
didn't spend any last year.
Mr. Anderson came, he had a schedule.
Mhm.
So it was like, okay, these, whatever, 8 streets will be done by this date, and then we'll move
Right.
in. So I don't know if that's being,
And right now, all the paving suppliers are closed down for the cold, and then they
Yeah.
reopen. But go ahead, Jan.
So, if I'm not mistaken, the transfer may have been an example of a balance of money going into an account that had not been allocated earlier, that it was found this year, that money is still sitting there, it ought to be added to this account. Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the situation we have here. Also, as to paving, we really wanted to get going again with paving, and we have. Quite a bit of paving that has happened over the last few months, actually, since late summer. And there will be more in the spring.
Yeah.
There will be in the backup material some information as to what the schedule is for that. And I've asked Rick to also reevaluate that schedule, because I think that needs to be done on an annual basis. And finally, this document, for me, is one of the most important tools that I have in both developing a budget and then in tracking how we're doing with the budget. It provides history, it can show you sometimes trends for certain types of expenditures in certain categories, but also, when we have a request, we should be able to explain if we have a large balance left, and nonetheless, ask for even more money or whatever it is, or less money. This is a fantastic tool.
Great.
So I have a question, if I may, for Rick. Like, if you take $500,000 and, if you pave $500,000, or if you pave $1.5 million, does the price per 100 yards or whatever of road change? Like, where do they, I'm just trying to understand what the cost per, you buy more. If you buy $1.5 million worth of asphalt versus $500,000, do you save, how much do you save? Like, where's the curve on that,
I don't know exactly where the curve is, Jeff. However, when you bid it, they look at what they think will be the total tonnage, and therefore automatically it's built in to the estimate. If you say you're going to do one road that's a quarter mile long versus you're going to do 4 roads that equal a mile, the price per ton will be less for the bigger job.
So I guess my question is, is it, and something's ringing a bell from like 15 years ago, but is it worth letting it build up to 3 years worth, $1.5 million, and then doing a bigger buy? Or I'm just asking a question, or not, or is it not worth it?
In my opinion, no, not at the numbers. If you're doing 500,000, you'll get a decent price.
Okay, I just wondered.
Just keep in mind, by the time we're paving these roads, they're almost down to gravel.
Sometimes
Like
the
East
road
Road,
condition.
I mean, look at,
It's gonna eat your
that's-
car.
That's.
Towel path, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's lost economy to wait until it's
Is that
really.
a state road?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll eat my words.
You want to keep your tires.
Unless you want to leave your street to the.
I live on a state road, so.
Yeah, but sometimes you gotta look.
Then you get a new road.
You are so messed.
Yeah, I know.
All right, anyway, I
Those
just
are
wanted
fine.
to ask the economic question. I did, so that's fine. So anyway, I just wanted to share this with the committee. It's a tool, as Jan said. And now the other tool we have, which we'll try to get on we'll request from time to time, to look at is the revenue one. That's the thinner one, of course. And again, that maps to the back of the docket, all the accounts that are non-property tax revenue. So the stamp tax is the first one, which you might remember from a little earlier. And so we thought we'd bring in $70,000 in stamp tax. The month to date, we brought in, month to date, $19,000, year to date, $128,000. Wow. What's going on there? So we brought in, we've been doing a lot of, stamp tax is, a lot of properties have been churning. Is that what that means?
And it didn't go to open space,
Right.
Ah, that's what it is. Okay, gotcha.
There's been a lot of turnover.
Gotcha.
which is a sad thing.
Gotcha. Okay. So there you go. So let's pick another one. Since that one had to change. So recording fees. Now that one's maybe more of a barometer. So recording fees is $140 to record a mortgage or whatever. So $155,000, and that's usually an estimate that we get from the clerk, because she's got her hand on the real pulse of that. And where are we now? We're not quite halfway through the year with this report, and we're at 49% collected. So we've collected half, and and we're only, 5 months in here. So we're good. We're doing good on that one. So that's the kind of stuff you can get a feel for. Because something like that's kind of linear, right? I mean, people walking to record a mortgage. I mean, some of these things can be quite linear. So there you go. Now, some of them you have to be a little careful with, like licenses might get renewed once a year, and they might tend to all be in the spring, or there might be, just for whatever sets of reasons, like a big blip on an agenda once a year. So you have to be a little careful, because there may be no license money, and then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of licenses get renewed for whatever reason in the spring at a certain hearing. So you have to be a little careful with these two, obviously. So this is the money coming in. So this is another tool we have. And I don't want to dwell on it. I just wanted to share it so everyone knows, especially the newcomers, that we have it.
So this is about halfway through, this is 6 months in.
I think it's 5. If you read the treasurer's,
I thought it went through for 12/31.
I thought so too, but I'm going to read, and the administrator works with this, so he probably really knows, but let's look. Where's her letter? Draft and revenue, okay, I'm looking at her letter. Draft revenue and expense through 12/31. But hyphen, please keep in mind, there is still December activity to post. I'm not sure what that means.
It means it's preliminary results for December. So some results for December, I think, are included to the extent we have them. And others are still coming, so it's not a final number.
Okay, all right, so we probably have the lion's share of them, but there's still some adjustments that are gonna come in. Okay, so we basically have them. Okay. I think it's probably safe to say they're not gonna go down, you know, I mean, they're gonna increase in both cases. Okay, thank you, Jan, for that, and Deb. Okay, we can move on, keep moving. Click 11, 12, administrative items. There should be a schedule in here somewhere, which I'm gonna look for, this is the one thing I'll look for a vote on at some point. It looks like this, it's a big, long, linear item. It's a big list, it's like one of the last sheets, I think.
Jeez, I got so much paper, I can't keep track of it. There it is.
This page 1, and it's in square brackets, approved by, on the upper right, approved by Budget Committee on January 10th. It's in square brackets, meaning it hasn't
Yep.
happened yet. So I put this together so that we could start to wrap our arms around how much time we have to get our work done and whatnot. And I have more information to show you, which I will now. Let me open up a file here. Documents, town, budget committee, right here. I think this is the puppy. Is it open?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I did was I downloaded off the internet a calendar. I changed the title, and I just wanted to get a feeling. I just kind of started at this. I started in Word with this, and I went to Excel, and I went back to Word in the end. So it's just one of those things. But what I did was I just wanted to get a feel for where we're at. So if you look, tonight we are on here. So we have Budget Committee meeting number 2. And I was hoping tonight we could get the solicitor here. We didn't. We had a little testimony because Kelly came up. So this was, I didn't go back to this and update it necessarily. And then Saturday is our first site visit. So I just sort of went through the process, and from this, and you'll see I did February and March, and I went through all the different months and then the FTR. And when I went through the whole process, and then I came back and put it all in a Word document to make it pretty to post. And when I did that, I came up with this schedule, and we have the site visits in here. You can see them potentially. And I haven't named what they are yet because the administrator is still working through that, but we do know a little bit of what's going on there. And that'll be decided by agenda each week. And then you'll notice at the bottom here, somewhere, hang on a second here. Nope, I added in the Tuesdays, so hopefully the 20th, hopefully we do such a good job that we don't need any Tuesdays. Wouldn't that be great? I've never seen it in all my years, but ideally we don't need the Tuesdays. But I put them there in case we need them, and I figured I'd just put them there so everyone knows. We may not need the 20th actually, probably if we're going to throw one to the wolves right away, it'd probably be the 20th. But there's a couple of Tuesdays in there. I'm assuming last year you probably needed a Tuesday or two?
Yes. Just a couple.
Yeah.
Or 3.
Yeah, okay, so that's the drill, right? So that's that at the end. And then the final is April 4th. And by the way, that April 4th happens to be the day that we have to turn our product in. That is the day per the schedule, if you count backwards. And it's also the one that Brendan gave us last week. So I think that this is, I almost posted this, and I said, wait, I got to get a vote of the committee because this is an annual schedule. So I know the council votes on their annual schedule. So we may find out we don't have a site visit one day, or who knows, a snowstorm or whatever. All that stuff happens in life. But I thought this was a good start anyway. So anyone have any comments? Everyone okay with it?
So it's basically every Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Saturdays.
Yeah, and I tried to get all site visits in February so that, they were done. I want to get them over with, I don't want them to drag out. If we can help, we can have a meeting if we need to, but I'm trying to get them done. Trying to get, I don't want to end up in March under too much stress. So I'm trying to get stuff done early.
I will unfortunately not be able to make any of the site visits because I work Saturday 10-hour shifts. I'm assuming, is there any kind of like notes taken or discussion about the site visits?
You can go. I might, because there's a couple I'm going to miss too. So like you can contact the director and go, can I come see the police station today? And they can walk you through.
Oh,
like
okay.
on a day off. So maybe I'll pal up with you on a couple of those because I've got a couple of Saturdays too.
Sounds good to me.
That you can just go and just contact them and they'll walk you through.
Okay, great.
I will be at the site visits if I'm in town. In the winter, however, I am not in town on many weekends, so even your chair is going to miss some of these.
Can I ask something about the Saturdays too?
What's that?
Can I ask something about Saturdays?
Yep.
So Saturdays, like typically last year, they were like right around 2 hours. And
Okay.
then I saw the agenda for this Saturday that looks quite ambitious.
Yes, it's
So are we gonna try to keep it around that time? Because that almost looks like a whole day. I'm like, I looked at that and
You have an 8-hour day.
I was
You're on the budget
like,
committee.
oh, okay.
So I think,
We planned on going to every one of those
No.
sites.
No, I know, but again, I got it through email, so I looked at that, and, I'm definitely committed to serve my time
Okay.
on the committee, but I
Okay.
looked at that and I was like, it is Saturday.
okay, yeah. Well, I was, that evolved in the following way. DPW, and then Jan suggested that we visit a couple of other ones that were in particular. One of them was it the drainage on Riverside and then the playground? Those were the two that Jan recommended. And then, I don't quite know when the email, who came first, but Rick had sent a longer list. So I didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. So I just took them all and put them on there.
That's fine.
And then I decided that whoever's on that is gonna figure out what they want to go to. And if someone wants to, that's not,
So
I think there's probably a couple, though, that are worth going to.
I have one other question because there were a lot of parks on there. Will someone from Recreation be there to discuss the needs and where we're at? And then will the other parks that were not included to that, because I know like Picasset's not on that, which that's a Parks and Recreation park, will those be done at another time?
During the testimony.
During site visits?
I hadn't thought about that. I mean, obviously, we want to try that when there are recreational facilities on the site visit agenda, that we have folks from
Right.
the Recreation Commission there. And I think Chris already indicated he would be available this Saturday to join
Great.
the group. So we can try that. The other, just general comment, I mean, we obviously would also appreciate not having to spend the whole day.
No.
I mean,
We'll make
listen,
an effort to, do it in 2 or 3 hours max.
yeah, that's
No,
kind of
no,
like,
no.
trust me, I'm committed to my job here, but we also have
No.
families and
Absolutely
things.
not, yeah. So I think, Rick, you're gonna lead the tour, I assume, of DPW. So you hear these comments, so maybe you could temper your tour so that, knowing that they're gonna drive around to 2 or 3 sites afterwards.
Yeah, 'cause-
My offer was to show the budget committee if they wanted to see those sites. I'm in no way saying you should see all those sites. It was simply an offer of the different areas that some of the budget items reflect.
I definitely think they need to be visited. I just think that
And we
that
can-
particular schedule is
And
very
we
ambitious.
could do another, if we
Yeah.
need to, if it turns out we spent all our time at the fire barn, we never really got out of the fire, at the barn, we never really even left. If that's how it goes, we can do another day and go to parks.
Because I just kind of brought
we
it
can
until
do that.
last year. I think we were there for like 2 or 2.5
Yeah,
hours
if
last
that's how
year,
it
but
goes,
I
that's
looked
how
at
it
I'm like,
goes.
There's no way.
If that's how it goes, that's how it goes. And that's fine, we'll just reschedule it and re-agenda it, and,
That's
so
fine.
don't feel rushed. On the other hand, if we'll just see how it goes.
Jeff, I
Okay,
have a
so-
comment on that, too. Basically, you could go, especially if you're new, if you haven't been before, so it doesn't mean that everyone has to go to every visit. If you've seen it before and you know what you want to see, you don't have to go to every single one, pick and choose what you feel is best.
I also like to go to see the progress. If you went last year, then you can go and say, oh, well, this got done and that looks better, or this still needs to be done and maybe has not been addressed. So I think it's good to, even if you have been before.
And that
go
would
and see
probably
how
be
that was.
helpful for some of us that are new to have
Yeah.
the people that have been there before say, well, this is what's been done.
This is what it looked like last year, oh, wow, that's got
Right.
fixed, you know, so I think that there is some.
It's really helpful, I'm sorry. I think it's helpful when they're coming up and they're talking about this kind of truck, and that is not my expertise at all, so at least I had a visual of what it looked like and remembered the holes in the floor and that kind of stuff, so it just helps to know, you know, what you're.
Feedback from people that maybe have, that are on the committee that have some more expertise in those fields, too.
Right.
So you can kind of.
So I guess the question is, are we all pretty much comfortable with this time schedule?
Showing you the truck.
Which one are you, the regular?
The one
meeting
Jeff.
ones?
The regular
I'm
meeting,
okay.
yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah,
Jeff.
so,
Yeah, that's good.
right, so this is just generalized, well, the specific, you know, we'll fill in the, who's coming before us and which site, we'll do that weekly, and as we work through the specifics on the agenda. This is just, I want to, you know, legally, I think we're supposed to try to post an annual schedule. The council did it on January 1st, they were
You
right
have to
on it.
actually post that on the secretary.
Correct, that's where it's headed, but I thought we should vote on it before I did that, because I almost did it without a.
No, I think
I used to post it in December because that's when it was required.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Before we even
we're a little late.
But we
yeah.
met, last year that we met once in December.
Okay, Jan?
Just a question, on the site visits, does anyone ahead of time sort of figure out how many people are going to actually show up?
That's a question, so, and if there's no quorum, I want to talk about what we do.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
Right.
also, but I was told that last year there was one particular site visit, no one showed up until actually later one person showed up.
Yeah.
And
I think
there
in
was a
fairness.
question whether.
Oh, that was the senior center. That was me.
I think in fairness, each week that we meet on Thursday, we should discuss whether we're gonna be there on Saturday. Like, I can't tell you going forward what my schedule will be and what
Right.
Saturdays I'll have to work or have
So did we
commitments.
want to just
So I
say,
think when we
Who
talk
will
on
be there
Thursday-
this Saturday then?
You got me for a couple hours.
and we have an extra person too that's going to come, if that's okay.
And there might be
Anybody
someone from
could
the public
go.
there, right, so, okay. So it looks like we
How
have
many
1, 2,
people?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
You missed Tom. Did you
no,
call?
1, 2,
1, 2,
3,
3,
4, 5,
5,
6,
6,
7. You gonna be there,
8.
Joe, or no?
So we're going to say
I
8.
just was gonna say, I'm gonna make every site visit, but I was just gonna ask, do we have access to get in the attic in some of these buildings so we can take a good look?
Not for you.
Don't let him in there.
I'm not joking, serious.
He's good on roofs too, you know.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure you want to do that during a site visit.
I
always
think that's
welcome
best.
to stop by and make.
You'd be surprised what I found, too.
Okay, so did you get your answer, 7 or 8 people, plus maybe 1 or 2 from the public? Jan, it sounds like we'll have max 10. Sounds like max 10. Does that help? Jan? The number, maximum 10?
We could probably come, we just need to know a little bit.
Are you thinking of doing the bus, or are you?
Well, we could. We've been talking about having the senior citizens, unintended,
Pulled all the information out.
available, and then hoping that it will not break down.
Okay.
I think we're good to use our own vehicles, that way if we have to pop in or out.
Okay.
I'll follow you.
We kind of.
I like to listen to my own music.
So this is what that agenda looks like. I just want to call attention to it for a moment, because it's a little bit, Ruth and Tom provided their cell phone numbers, and, you know, I just want to be completely transparent and whatnot, and with the open meeting. So we're going to be leaving the site. From what I understand, the important thing is that, you know, when you start the meeting, it's there, and then, of course, agenda items can change within a meeting and whatnot. So the first part of this is 9 o'clock at DPW Barn Saturday, and then as is decided by those who are there, to visit none or some of these, or all of them, if you have the stamina of these locations. And then Ruth and Tom volunteered their cell number, so just make sure your ringers are on. And then if you get a call and someone says, I got to join that site visit, then you can say, hey, we're at playground right now, we're headed to town farm, whatever it is. You can, you know, just so that people and the public may want to join. It's not a requirement to do that, but I did it just. The requirement is that the 9 o'clock it starts, and that's the requirement.
But later on, specifically the other playgrounds, because I see that they're not all on
Yeah.
one, so we will add, I wish they had kind of all been like. we
Yeah, I
had
just
one whole
took the
playground
list
that-
Rick gave and used it, so.
Yeah, so there's a couple that are missing that will be added to another one.
We can do that. Bring it up. You can own that.
Excuse my ignorance, but where is the Bayview Playground?
I don't know where that one is either. We've never been there.
It's right up off of Bay Street.
Show me a little one.
It's a little tiny.
Is that a
one.
contamination issue, or?
Well,
is that-
no, they don't.
But thanks for letting me know. We won't bring the kids there.
Just basically a field where people walk their dogs. So when you get to the dead end, they go up the hill and down there?
Yeah, because I mean,
I
Go
want to
down
suggest
Judson.
that,
Yeah.
like you said, this
Down
is a
there.
very ambitious list.
yeah, I think that's, I don't think you, I mean, to be
Jan
honest,
had
like,
suggested two of them. Which two did you suggest, Jan?
Well, I think town farm is sort of, but it's also way out.
but I think you're not giving enough time to it. I think Town Farm specifically, because it's been such an issue, we know there's an issue there. I think that's kind of, like, last time DPW was 2.5 hours. I think if you try to do Town Farm, I think you're gonna try to short it, what the
Okay.
need really is.
I don't think
So
there's
if-
anybody on this committee that doesn't know the problems at Town Farm, is there? I think
I don't know all of them. I just-
No, but I mean, I know there's
I
obviously, I have kids
Okay.
that played there, but.
flooding and stuff.
We're gonna leave it up to
Yeah.
those there,
Right.
okay?
I
And
know of
what would
If
be
we
the-
don't do it, we can just float it to another agenda,
Right,
right?
exactly. If you have a quorum, okay, if you have a quorum, okay, if you have a quorum, you're actually in session, I guess you would, you would just move to end the meeting or whatever, and that's it, right? And then, right, you just end the meeting, you
Yeah,
adjourn
why
the
don't
meeting,
we-
whatever
why
you
don't-
normally do at these
We don't
things.
vote. We don't
Right,
vote
okay.
at all. And we don't need, you don't need a quorum.
Right, and you don't need a quorum, so
Because you're
you,
not voting.
no matter what you do, you're gonna do the tour.
But maybe we move the playgrounds, all the rec stuff, the Bayview, move that to another day.
Okay.
And keep it more like DPW stuff.
Okay,
And just thought, like, I'd like to go to all, like, to keep it generalized, like, go to all the rec stuff, like she said, but include the other ones that are missing from there.
On another
And
day.
have somebody from Recreation.
That's what I'm saying, but like, we did like all the playgrounds and the rec stuff in one day, that's doable, but then what you're doing is you're going to visit one, and then like 3 weeks from now, we're gonna go look at another.
okay.
Do you
So
know,
however
like-
you wanna do it.
Like, I don't know,
You're
that's just
gonna-
me, I like things very,
Could maybe she send, you want to just send me an email of like what you think the way you guys did it before, because then maybe we can.
we've
I don't
not,
think they did it
we have
before.
not done parks
First time.
before, this did not happen.
Oh.
But I, like, just because, like, again, some of the parks we use aren't listed there, but I think it's good to keep them all together instead of going to see one and then
Yeah.
going later
Well,
down.
then you can get a real
You get
reference.
all the information in one, they're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the condition of
That
one,
park's
this
in
is.
good shape, this is bad, and it's not weeks. to
Yeah,
come, right?
and I think that makes it, I'd like to see the Stone Bridge, because I think that pertains to DPW.
Okay.
So
Well,
maybe
why
just
don't,
we'll
you can,
switch the
you guys,
list.
you guys can figure that out, guys and gals can figure that out, right? So when you get there, if you have time, and maybe there's no time, in which case we'll regroup it in a week. That's why I put so many special, the site visits, and hopefully we can get them all in, so. Okay, so what I'm looking for is, Rick, go ahead.
Yes, there may be some misunderstanding. When I sent the email, it is to show the different locations where some money might be spent. For instance, Town Farm or Boogamosh Park. That was the intent. The intent was not to direct the committee to visit the sites.
Oh,
It's
right.
available if you wish, but it was not intended in any way to say you
You have to.
should
Yeah.
Right.
visit these sites.
Okay.
But those items come out of recreation budget, right, not DPW. So I think it would be great if we could get somebody from recreation to show us, because they're gonna come and discuss their budget, and that they show us the condition.
And one thing, just a general comment on that with recreation, the question sort of is, who takes care of these facilities? And who can take care of it? And with what shall we do it? And so I've been hammering at DPW getting more officially tasked with the facilities management aspect of the recreational facilities. And the commission more focused on the programmatic responsibilities, making sure we have the right programs and obviously having input into, the maintenance program as well. But things like that. So I think it's helpful to have DPW together with the rec commission and the coordinator for the rec commission as well there.
Okay.
Quick question. The Riverside Drive, is that the steel plate bridge that you're talking about?
That's one of the, that's actually one of the locations where clearly a project will need to happen. The question is timing, but there's a larger issue with Riverside Drive, in my opinion, put it very bluntly, that if we don't do anything, it's going to be in the river before we know it.
Is that the one last year they talked about, like the drainage was like falling into the road? Right.
Yeah, it's covered over with steel plates.
It was, the conversation was about, I think like the Riverside Drive was due for, I think this was why the paving in this particular area was because they were talking about paving it and then he's like, this was the one that was falling in.
So there's a particular issue with where
We
there
need
should be
3
a new.
pieces of PVC pipe laid under the road and a new road bed put over it. I don't know why we didn't do it 10 years ago.
But only one issue is whether and when you put in a new culvert. The other issue with Riverside Drive is how long is the drive actually going to be there?
And what's the other one
Because
that's
the
on there?
erosion is
Can I ask
scary.
Can I ask a question, Jan? Whoever has these sites that recommended it, maybe you, Rick, can you just put a short little bullet saying maybe what the main issues are? Because that would help me decide which ones I want to go to. I'm just not sure right now. Maybe just a quick little short thing.
For Saturday, just
We can try.
scribble.
I'm sorry to
Scribble
ask.
things.
Because what's Pond Ridge Road? What's the issue there?
Same thing,
Same thing.
essentially.
Okay.
If I could back up for a second, Ruth, would you like an email sent to Jeff?
Oh.
Is that the concept that says what the issue is?
Yeah, any problem issues, yeah, to maybe send it to you?
If you'd like, sure, you could pull them right off of this agenda, cut and paste, and the problem, somehow these made your list, so maybe you know there's an issue at Riverside Drive, it's a
Needs
drainage
addressing.
issue.
Yeah,
and
just
this one
so
is
we have some concept,
so
nothing complicated.
Maybe one of them is just, hey, look at the stone bridge, how it's looking good. I don't know what the...
Yeah.
One other thing, it's an opportunity to say something about is a category I created within the capital budget has to do with, different categories of infrastructure. One being waterfront infrastructure. We don't think enough about what the condition is of seawalls, of, roadways right on the water, things like that, of what's going to happen with businesses that have their businesses on the water or even over the water, or what will happen with residences. So I want to try to highlight some of those issues. Riverside Drive is a very good opportunity to look at seawater rise issues and stormwater issues all combined.
Wasn't there one, and I don't know which one, that like, they couldn't even get plows down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually we've been cleaning it up with the neighbors. So.
There's no way to turn around at the end, that's the biggest
That was what
issue.
the truck was too big to go down.
You can only send a pickup
They
in there.
had to back up or something.
Another comment, I will certainly send Jeff the email, but just to sort of maybe clarify a little bit on the playgrounds. The bulk of the playground discussion is simply thinking for the future, how are you going to redo some of the jungle gyms, some of the apparatus, so Town Farm, Northeast Jungle Gym does not reoccur, and clarifying, delineating who's responsible for maintaining some of the buildings or sheds or some of the facilities at the playgrounds. It is not simply that necessarily all these playgrounds need attention in a wholesale manner at this time. It is to say what would be happening possibly in the future if people recognize the need.
Would you be, it might actually, when I hear that, I wish that we'll see council members joining us on an issue like the recreation issue, because there's really a larger policy issue there as well. How we go forward with recreational.
Are they invited? Did they know they're invited?
I I think they know.
Public's invited, so.
Well, but that's not necessarily this, it sounds like that's not gonna be this Saturday. It sounds like it's gonna break off.
Yeah, I think you
Separate.
need to go see them all. I mean, obviously, Town Farm is the biggest hot, but I know that there's conditions at some of the others that have been not addressed.
Okay. So, Rick, when you send me that, and then I will hopefully see it, and I'm gonna take it and forward it to the entire committee, and no one replied, right? So that's the rule.
And I will send that email, and just so there's no misunderstanding, I'm happy to spend whatever time is needed for the budget committee on these site visits. But I, like everyone else, has plenty to do on any given.
Once you all hit 2 hours and a half, I suggest you pack it in myself.
Yeah, that's enough.
Anyway, okay,
you're
so
not
can I
there, we
have a vote? I'd
definitely
like to
will.
entertain a motion to approve the agenda, the annual.
Motion to approve the annual agenda.
Okay, we had a motion from Deb Janik.
Okay.
We had we had 2 seconds, so
Who did the second?
Jen had the first second. Too slow.
Okay.
Okay, so any more discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Okay. Unanimous? Deb didn't vote, but that's okay. I think she. Oh, you did? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Okay. All right, great, thank you. Great, so we got that done. I just want to show you, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just want to show you what's going through my world. So what I did was, and Jan has seen this actually, I took all the docket line items, here they are, and I started allocating who's going to testify, elected officials. So for example, the sergeant came up tonight, there you go. And so this is what Jan and I are sort of working through, and we've already got some things lined up for next week, and we're going to try to fill up that agenda with testimony and whatnot. And I think by next week, are we going to have a budget, Jan? The 15th is Saturday. Are we or not? When are you going to give it to the council?
15th is Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday?
Yeah, so I'm going to submit it officially at the council meeting on Monday.
Great, so next week we'll have a budget.
And it will be transmitted to the budget.
Great, awesome. So we'll talk a lot in the next week in the next 3 or 4 days to set this up, okay?
And my suggestion is going to go, first of all, to clarify that, yes, I'm going to try to be at a lot of these meetings on these topics.
Yep.
Most of them I will want to do together with the department heads, which I think you understand as well.
Sure.
And some of them, I really want to say right up front, it's not my expertise. Like the treasurer will have to do a lot of the stuff that you have me sign up for. So.
Well, that's what you and I need to get on the horn and bang through. I just wanted to show the committee what's kind of going on in the background here, and here's the site visit. So the DPW, I do want to show you this, so just so everyone knows what's coming up. So this Saturday is the DPW site visit. Jan has informed me that the following Saturday is the senior center, FYI. The following Saturday is the senior center site visit. And so we're still filling it all in, maybe we'll, and whatnot. So I just want to give everyone a heads up on that. Also, next week, the solicitor is going to come and we're going to take him right away, of course, and he's going to give us a short brief on the Open Meetings Act, a refresher. It'll be actually new for many on the committee, and I could use it myself, since I'm sitting in his chair and haven't thought about it in a while. The solicitor is going to come and give us a short brief on the Open Meetings Act, APRA, and the ethics whatnot. So that's going to happen at the beginning of, and that's what Brendan had mentioned, I think, and I followed up and made it happen. He couldn't come tonight. I tried to get him tonight, but he's going to come next week. So the agendas are coming together is the moral of the story that I'm trying to get to, and the site visits are coming together. That's B and C. And I just also want to mention the discussion and possible approval of rules process used by the committee. This is D, and we didn't really talk about it, but we can do this by consensus, I hope, but we're going to, I mean, if it comes down to it and we need to go there, we're going to use Robert's Rules of Order. Are we all in agreement on that? Okay. I just think we should just say it once because, you know, then you get into a pickle if you don't. And the other thing that's probably more important is, like, we don't receive the budgets. If you look here, and I know some of you already know what I'm about to say, but if you look here, right here, this day, this 16th of March 16th is when the budgets are due to us from it's a Saturday. Ideally, we can buy coffee and get them for this day. It'd be great if we got them for the 14th. Because they're probably going to get approved earlier in the week. But they're due to us no later than the 16th. And so until we get those final budgets, I would propose, and I'm open to other ideas, but I would propose that we hold off on our voting until we get those budgets, the final budgets, and that we just kind of do our testimony and research and notes and whatnot up until that point. What's that? Yeah, I think so. I don't know what happened last year. I know what happened the year before. I know what happened in 2012. I don't know. Is that what generally you've been doing?
Well, what we've done the past 2 years, since I've been here, is we did things that we really can't change, like debt, those kind of things. We voted on those early. And then, as time went on and we got to talk to people, then, if we reached a consensus on a particular budget item, we voted on it then. We didn't wait until the very end to do, vote on 100 things.
Okay.
So, we all know, or those of us who have been here more than once know, that there are certain items in the budget, like contracts. We can't do a thing about them. All we can say is, okay, we saw it, and we sort of have to approve it. And debt service and all those kinds of things.
So Justin or someone would make a motion to vote on all of them at once, some of these types of items. We saved a lot of
That
time.
makes sense, yeah.
Say it again, Ruth?
Someone would make a motion to vote on multiple things at once, like what Jay's talking about, and we saved a lot of time that way.
Like,
The stuff that we can affect.
but maybe like in February, like before the end.
During the course of the procedure, not wait until they're,
Not
not wait
March.
until the beginning of March and say, we're going to do 100 of them.
Were they final votes? What Chris Cotty used to do?
Yeah, they were final votes.
Final.
They were?
Yeah.
Okay.
But only those things
That we
that we can't change or that we don't know anything about.
You're just set in stone.
Well, obviously, once a police contract salary is negotiated and approved, we can't change it, and it's that.
Right.
So that could be voted on.
Because there's 4 contracts in negotiation right now, so.
Yeah,
that's,
so it's going to be a big year.
Okay. I'd like to, just because I'm sitting in this chair then, we agreed it was Robert's rules. I'd like to think a little bit more about just how to handle that. I understand the concern of waiting till the end, and I agree. So I just want to sleep on it. I'm tired I just want to sleep on it, on how to handle that. And I came into this thinking we'll do all the voting after that day, and and now this is different, so I just want to sleep on it.
No vote is final until the end anyway. So you still have to vote again for the entire docket. And you can, even if you take a vote on, say, the police budget, you can always change if information.
Well, that's how Cotty used to do it. They weren't final votes, they were preliminary votes.
Yeah.
And that would be a way to soften it, where I think I'd be, like, all the votes are preliminary,
Yeah.
and then, but then, in other words, you don't need to use Robert's Rules reconsideration to reconsider them. So if you voted and then all of a sudden it came down to, I wanted to do that vote over, but I can't bring it up again because I was on the wrong side of the vote, or, you know what I mean? So it would be reconsiderable without having to go through the formality of the Robert's Rules. You could just bring it up again without having to be on, So that might be a way to do it, is just have them as temporary votes.
State
Preliminary
revenue.
vote, we can always revisit it.
What's that?
And we can always revisit it.
Yeah, and then they get locked in with a, yeah.
Just like you was talking about earlier, if they do decide not to fund the car tax, we're gonna have to make changes. So.
Right. Okay. If it's okay, I'm going to think about that. Let me just sleep on it because I'm tired now.
Yeah.
If that's okay. But long and short of it is we talked about Robert's Rules anyway. And so closing remarks, I think I've already mentioned next week the solicitor and whatnot. So I think we're done. So I'll entertain, unless someone else has closing remarks.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Second.
Second.
Third.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Did you get who did that, Sherry?
Everybody.